To kick off this episode, I am now going to perform every one of Tom Hardy's lines in Mad Max Fury Road. There you go.
You forgot. Welcome back to the Uncultured Pop Culture Podcast. This is David, and I am joined, as usual, by my co-host,
Brandon.
And we have a very special guest today. In case you couldn't tell from the title of the episode, our first ever returning guest.
It's Grace.
Welcome
Hi.
back.
How does it feel to be the first guest ever to return?
It's an honor, truly. It was an honor just to be a guest in the first place, but to be the first returnee, I would like to thank the Academy. I'd like to thank not only God, but also Jesus. And I would like to thank my roommate, Joe Flannery. And I'm saying that just because if Mo listens to it, she'll get really mad that I shouted out Joe and not her.
Very good.
All right, now you got to talk for another 20 minutes to beat Adrian Brody.
Exactly. I was going to say the same thing. Welcome back. And obviously the people know who you are, but if you want to give a brief introduction into who you are and also a brief overview of your rating system again, in case you want to catch up the people.
Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm Grace. I am one of Brandon's very good friends. We met almost 7 years ago now at this point, which is crazy.
Wow.
In college, literally on the very first day orientation, and have been pals ever since. And now, because of Brandon, I am also friends with David. And David was just at my Oscars party, got to see me in my furry era with my bunny ears and tail.
Can't wait to see the
also
next
in a
furry
cop
era.
uniform.
That's true.
Whoa.
Giving out notes.
Oh my God.
Truly an amazing sight to behold.
Furry cop is a very specific aesthetic, which I don't know if I want leaked to the general public. I think if those pictures get out, it might be over for me.
I have a feeling that Mo will retaliate to the fact that you didn't shout her out by releasing those pictures. Just gonna say.
The thing is, she's also dressed as a furry cop, so it would be a
That's
little
true.
bit of scorched earth, mutually assured destruction at that point. But my rating system is very vibes based. I take into account how much I like the piece of media that I'm rating, as well as the quality, and kind of average those things out. But in general, it's a lot of vibes at the end of the day.
But now we have to ask the eternal question, as we do every week. And I'm actually going to start with David this week, as we always do, it seems.
Oh my gosh, who could have seen that coming?
David, what have you watched in this past week? I need to know.
I saw a movie at the movie theater, but it was not a new movie because they just re-released Stand By Me. So Jennifer and I went, in case anyone didn't know, which is probably most of you guys, that's one of, if not her favorite movies of all time. So we went and we watched it. My second time, great experience. I love that movie. We will probably cover it at some, we got to cover it at some point because that's just an all-time classic, especially considering that it's Rob Reiner's first film, second film, something like that. But it was a great experience seeing it in the theater. And now I'm going to kick it over to you and ask you, what have you been listening to?
Well, guys,
Brandon,
we finally done it. There's a 3.5 album I have to talk about.
Oh my God.
Thank God. This is only the fourth album this year that I've actually liked. And this is called You by Underscores. And I mentioned that Underscores would be releasing an album probably about a year ago now on the podcast. And it took a long time for her to get this album out. And sadly, it is only 9 songs. But they're very good 9 songs. And they're very consistent, and I enjoyed my time. It is on my year-end list right now. I don't expect it to stay there because usually 4 and above is going to be year-end list, but I highly recommend this. So if you like hyperpop, check it out. And now I'm going to throw it on over to Grace. What have you watched and listened to over the past how long has it been? 8 months, 9 months since you've been on the podcast?
Well, first, I actually want to be annoying, and I did check actually where in Rob Reiner's filmography Stand By Me stands, because I was like, it was his first movie. Are you serious? He really got it in one? And it looks like it was actually his third feature length. Before that was This Is Spinal Tap and The Sure Thing.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I can't believe I thought it was his first, because that's one of the things I know about This Is Spinal Tap, that was his first. Still amazing for that to be your third film, though.
Oh my God, yeah. What have I been listening to and watching? I've really not watched a lot of movies in recent weeks, especially. I think I'm a little burnt out on movies. I won't lie. Last year, I watched more movies than I'd watched in like the previous 2 years combined.
Whoa.
Wow.
It was a little much.
Damn.
For me. I think I'm a little sick. You know, when you eat such a delicious food and then you eat it too much and then you're like, I feel kind of ill. So like, I haven't seen Project Hail Mary. I know everyone's watching that right now.
I have not seen it either. I'm planning to go watch it.
My roommate Mo is watching it tonight for the second time. She watched it before. She loved it. That was a 5-star movie for her.
I will say I do feel like I do the same thing where I get burnt out on movies, but what I do is I just go back and forth between TV and movies.
So this is what I've done. So I have been watching with the aforementioned Mo. I've been rewatching the first season of True Detective.
Ooh, that's a great season. I love
Great
that season
of television. It's a rewatch for me. It's a first watch for her. God, it's so good.
It's amazing.
It's so good. It holds up. It's a little bit very of its time. Like you can tell it's like, it's mid 2010s HBO. Yeah. And they're like, can we show a pair of titties in this episode, in every single episode?
Yeah.
Regardless of whether or not.
And for how long.
How long. But God, Matthew McConaughey is just so spectacular in it. And Rust Cole is such like a singular character. Great season of television. And then it's also the 50th season of Survivor. So it's a huge season of Survivor. They've got 24 contestants, which is the most they've ever had, all returnees. And I've been watching that with my roommates every Wednesday night. That's been so fun. It's actually been a really good season so far as well, which people were kind of skeptical about because a lot of people weren't happy with the cast, myself included. You know, so far I've been really impressed and really enjoying it. The last movie I saw in theaters was Undertone at the beginning of this month, and it was no good.
That's what I heard.
Can't recommend.
Was it scary though?
I mean, it's about a haunted podcast. There were moments, but overall, not really that scary. It did a lot of great building tension, but then the tension always just fizzled. The story was just bad. The characters were bad. I don't know what it was even trying to say. Shout out for trying, a horror movie that's like audio based. How many times can you hear like creepy kids singing a song and then playing it backwards?
Yeah.
And they also, the way that the main character and her podcast partner, because that's the premise, is they do a podcast about like spooky things. They will literally record for like 10 minutes and then be like, okay, we'll record the rest of it next week. And then they'll record for 10 minutes. And then they'll say, okay, let's record the rest of it next weekend. But what I've been listening to, I've been listening to Pareidolia by Erin LeCount. That's her new EP that just came out. Really, really great stuff. She kind of reminds me of like a young Florence and the Machine if Florence was like continually working with Calvin Harris or like some other like pop producer and making like bangers. But like 808 Hymn and Don't You See Me Trying are like really great. I think really great pop songs.
I second this.
She does a lot of her own production herself, which is really cool. And she's like only 23. And there aren't a lot of women producers.
No, not at all.
Out there.
Shout out women.
Shout out.
Shout out women, which that's going to be a lot of what this episode is about. It's going to be about shouting out women.
That's right.
We're recording it in the last days of Women's History Month.
Shout out women for real.
Shout out women.
Shout out women.
To keep shouting out women, then I also just listened to Tiger's Jaw new album, Lost on You. And they are a Midwest emo band. One of the rare Midwest emo bands that actually has like a female member. And she also sings lead vocals, not all the time, but quite a bit. So that's another shout out women. It was a decent album. I've really been in my Midwest emo bag for the past year. I've like had a second emo phase, first one in my teenage years. Now I've regressed back to that. It's a solid album. It really does sound like something that could come out of that mid 2010s era. So it's a nice throwback. And then also, I've really been bumping Oxis, Oxis. They've been putting out some albums that are just titled like Oxis 6, Oxis 7, Oxis 8. And all of the covers have a little fish on them. And a lot of the songs are named after fish, which is fun. But they're good. Like, it's fun, like bedroom electro pop. And then I also wanted to shout out Pool Kids. They put out a record last summer that I've been bopping a lot recently. It's called Easier Said Than Done. And that's another female-fronted alt-rock band.
Shout out women.
Shout out women.
Shout out women.
Well, I think that takes us to the start of the album. And this is Little Earthquakes, the debut album by Tori Amos. Released January 6th, 1992 by East West Records in the UK and February 25th, 1992 by Atlantic Records in the US. The album was preceded by the lead single Me and a Gun and Silent All These Years, both in 1991. China was released as a single between the UK and US releases of the album, and Winter and Crucify were released after the album as the fourth and fifth singles, respectively. And I want to start off my line of questioning with David. Have you heard of Tori Amos before?
I have not. I came into this totally blind. I obviously looked up her wiki page, but I did not know anything. I didn't know what style it was going to be. I didn't even realize that this was from the 90s until I looked up, the date of the album. So yeah, going in totally blind, which honestly, I really enjoy doing that.
And now my second question in my line of questioning goes to Grace. How did you discover Tori Amos? And was this the first album that you heard by her?
Yes. So I discovered Tori Amos through a recommendation of my voice teacher, actually. When I was either like 15 or 16, I was taking vocal lessons, and my voice teacher very randomly just was like, have you ever heard of Tori Amos? Like, do you know who that is? I'd never heard of her. And she pulled out the Little Earthquakes record and said, I think her songs would suit your voice very well. Listen to Winter and Silent All These Years. And so I went home. I can't remember which one I listened to first, if I listened to Winter first or Silent All These Years first. But I do know that by the end of listening to those two songs, I was like sitting on the bathroom floor in tears. It really felt like Tori was speaking directly to me about my life. And it was like, in my life, there's a before Tori and there's an after Tori. So then I dove in. I listened to some of her other more popular singles before kind of diving in and listening to this album in full. And it's been one of my favorite albums ever since, if not my favorite album. And that is why I decided to bring it to you along with the film. And I think, sonically, maybe this like piano singer-songwriter album doesn't seem to fit very well with Mad Max Fury Road, but I think in the themes, specifically the themes of feminism, are like go perfectly well together.
Well, I had two more questions and you answered both of them right away. So that was why this album and why this pairing. And then also, is this her best album? So there you go. I have nothing else to say. Grace, take it away.
This is her best album, I think. She has like a really generational run of her first like 3 or 4 albums. This one was followed by Under the Pink and then Boys for Pele. All great albums with great songs. To start off, actually, this episode, I want to give like a general trigger warning for sexual assault because we will be discussing that at length. It is a significant part of Tori's background and a significant part of the album, as well as the film Fury Road. So if that is something that is like difficult for you to listen to, just a heads up that we'll be discussing that, and feel free to turn it off.
Yeah, you can just like turn the volume all the way down and keep streaming the episode all the way through. That also works. I'm fine with that.
Just let her run all night.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so this album, she began writing it in the 80s. China was actually the first song that she wrote for it, 1987. And then she was producing it with Eric Rossi. who was her boyfriend at the time. She'd been dating him since 1987, and he produced both this album and then her next one, Under the Pink, before they broke up in 1994. Little Earthquakes has made multiple best albums of all time lists. In 1998, Q readers voted Little Earthquakes the 66th greatest album of all time. And in 2002, the same magazine named it the 4th greatest album of all time by a female artist. It was also voted number 73 in the 3rd edition of Colin Larkin's all-time top 1,000 albums and was ranked number 233 in the 2020 version of Rolling Stone's 500 greatest albums of all time. It was also included in the book 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die, which is like the music counterpart to the 1001 movies you should see before you die. And this is a fun fact that I didn't know that Brandon put me onto, but one of this album's big fans is Justin Timberlake, of all people.
Yeah, shout out.
Not have expected that.
Who has said that this album changed his life and is so fucking good. That's a direct quote. That speaks to the power of Tori and the power of women, I guess. Tori encountered a lot of roadblocks in the making of this album, and I guess just a lot of roadblocks in her creative life in general. I'll give a slight bio of her, like a very brief bio. She was born Myra Ellen Amos. She grew up around the Washington, D.C. area. She was a child prodigy. By the time she was 3, she was able to not only play piano, but compose her own music on the piano.
That's wild.
That's crazy.
And at the age of 5, she was admitted to the prestigious Peabody Conservatory in Baltimore. And so being the youngest person ever to be accepted to the school, she studied classical, but that was not her passion. She hated sight reading, and she instead listened... She instead was drawn to and listened to a lot of rock music, like Led Zeppelin, other rock acts of the time. So she was rebelling at school. She didn't want to do the classical music, and she was also rebelling a bit at home. She had a very religious upbringing. Her father was a reverend, a Methodist. She said that she thinks her father thought that classical music would save her from, being corrupted by the sinful world and boys and everything. But she has said I found this quote from her. She was really drawn to music because musicians like Robert Plant and other rock stars of the time, they were conjoined with their instruments. You could not divide them, and you couldn't invade them either, unlike the way the church and its ideas had invaded my consciousness. She said she was looking for, quote unquote, sensuality without the subservience. So by the age of 11, it's widely reported that the Peabody Conservatory kicked her out. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but what they did was they rescinded her scholarship because they were like, if you're not going to study and you're not going to put forth the effort to what we want to teach you, then why should we pay for you to go to this school? And so she withdrew from the school. And her father actually became a bit of her stage manager and started taking her to bars in Washington, D.C., specifically gay bars, where she ended up playing a lot of her music and where she kind of cut her teeth performing. She has crazy stories about how all the gay bartenders and patrons, everyone knew her, and they would... she kind of got her sex education from all the gay men in the bars. And she said that's a bit of a unorthodox way to learn about the birds and the bees. But by the 1980s, she moved to Los Angeles to pursue a career in music, and she formed a synth pop band, Why Can't Tori Read, that was modeled very much off of the success of Kate Bush, to whom Tori's been compared quite a bit, especially because of their similar vocal stylings. But it was a huge flop, just a complete disaster. No one cared about it. No one paid attention to it. That really was devastating for her. That failure, she has said, is kind of what made her the musician that she is, just failing so miserably. She ended up going to England to then write and record Little Earthquakes. And she now actually does live in the UK instead of the United States. Doug Morris was the guy running Atlantic Records at the time. They're the ones, they sent her to the UK, said, record this album. This guy, Max Hole, was the head of East West Records, which was the UK side of Atlantic Records. And he sent her basically to England to work with him on the record. The album came out of that. The label wanted a lot of guitar music. They told her to replace all the piano with guitars as much as she could. She resisted that. She got a lot of pushback when she first played it for the executives. Not as much pushback as she would get on some of her other albums. Famously, Boys for Pele was like hated by the record label, but it is like one of her greatest bodies of work anyways. And so it came out and her instincts were correct, and it was, it was a huge hit, a huge success, and launched her career and remains an iconic part of the 90s singer-songwriter and just like the female rock musician pantheon in general.
I wanted to ask you, you talked briefly about your relationship to this album. What is this album to you like now?
This is like the rock that I turn to in times of like turmoil and difficulty and hardship and sadness in my life. This is my hype album. This is, I feel like when I'm listening to this album, I'm like praying to the saints. Like this is my church. Listening to this album it's just such a way for me to, I just get so much strength from it. And I've been listening to it a lot recently, which maybe tells you a bit about my life and how things are going. But it's old reliable. I know that I can throw this on and like really draw a lot of courage from it. And listening to it these days recently, so I'm 28. This album came out when Tori was 29. So I'm the same age as she was when she was like writing and recording a lot of it. And this album really does just, it feels like a memoir of the life of a woman and her life specifically from childhood through her 20s, kind of to this moment of, being this maybe technically fully formed adult, but obviously you're still changing and growing and struggling. And I feel the pain of the childhood and adolescence and young adulthood in this album, like just throughout. Every single song marks a moment in life, and specifically in, the transition from girlhood to womanhood. So these days I feel it so much more acutely. I feel that narrative of the album so much more acutely.
Much like David has never heard of Tori Amos and thus has never heard this album, I have also never heard this album. Grace has played me a few songs from it, and I've heard like parts of it, but I've never listened to it in full. So this is brand new for me as well. So I wanted to get that out of the way. And then I wanted to tell you that all songs are written by Tori Amos on here. The string arrangements are by David Lord and Nick DeCaro, and it's mixed by John Kelly, Paul McKenna, and Ross Cullum. And there's different producers on every track, so I'll read those out as we get there. And before we get into track 1, I have to tell you guys what your favorite and least favorite songs are going to be. So David, I'm going to start with you. Your favorite song will be Girl. Ooh. And I have no idea what your least favorite will be, but I'm going to guess Mother. I have no idea. And I said that you're going to give this album a 3.5. And Grace, your favorite will be Silent All These Years, and I'm sorry I cheated.
Yeah, that got spoiled for Brandon.
And then I also know that you don't like a song on here very much, and I'm going to guess that it's Happy Phantom, but I have no idea. That one is an actual guess, so we'll see. And I said, I have a feeling that you're going to give this a perfect 5. I wonder why.
Yeah, we can get that out of the way right now. This is a perfect 5 for me.
Yeah, I expected nothing less. So let's start off with track number 1, Crucify, produced by David Sigerson. I do not know if that's how you say his name, Davitt. So yeah, David, who knows? But that's kind of a David mention, so shout out, I guess.
Ironically, that's how you say David in Armenian, David.
Shout out Armenia.
Shout out Armenia.
Shout out Jennifer.
God damn it, both of you. I said Jennifer first.
That's true. You technically said Armenia first, but you didn't do the shout out to either. But, I
didn't shout out, that's right.
Anyway, Crucify is the 5th and final single from the album. It was released May 12th, 1992. It peaked at number 15 on the UK singles chart, and it did not chart in the US, but it did peak at number 22 on the alternative airplay chart in the US. And I'm going to hand it over to Grace to start off all of these songs because she loves them, I think, more than either of us will.
Yeah, I'm so curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this album because I truly, Tori's very singular. I'm the only one of my friends I know who's a fan, and It's a very specific taste. She has a very specific style, both vocally, musically, lyrically. So it's really tough for me to say whether or not I think someone may or may not enjoy her. I love that this song opens the album with a bang. I love that we just get one guitar chord and then we launch right into it. And with these like really aggressive lyrics, that every finger in the room is pointing at me. I want to spit in their faces. Like the rage is palpable immediately. And the themes of this one are it's the shame that women are meant to being told to feel of their bodies, of their sexualities, of their existence. Religious trauma comes up as well. This speaks a lot to her background as, a preacher's daughter, pretty much. Just the general feelings of, just like guilt, dirtiness, shame that really permeate a lot of aspects of a woman's life. My personal favorite lyric is "Got enough guilt to start my own religion." Great line, I think.
Great line.
This album, I will say too, Tori's lyrics are famously very opaque and very poetic and like almost nonsense. This album is probably her most straightforward lyrically, where it's you know what she's talking about pretty much, even if she's using a lot of symbolism and imagery. Where there are a lot of songs where it's just kind of like, whatever you think this means is what it means. There's no real wrong or right answer. Whereas here, I think she spells things out a little more plainly for the listener. So this song is a great example of that, where it's, this is a song about how women take the guilt, crucify themselves, feel guilty, feel ashamed for various things in their day-to-day life. That's how I see it. That's my interpretation. I love this song. I'll withhold my star rating because I want to hear from both of you guys before I say my star rating.
Who do you want to hear from first?
Let's say David.
First of all, I never heard of Tori Amos, as I said before, but also one of my blind spots when it comes to rock is 90s rock. So I think that added a little level of like not knowing what to expect, especially considering that even within that, Tori Amos is very singular. Like after having listened to the album, I generally could not like put her music into one genre or like anything like that. So it was really interesting going into this and listening to Crucify as the first song, because it did feel very 90s to me, but it also felt unlike anything else that I'd ever heard when it comes to genre. The lyrics, I think, and this kind of goes for the whole album, really stood out to me. And now I'm honestly interested to hear some of her more opaque stuff, because I feel like this is already so dense, but in a good way, where there's a lot of meaning present, that I would want to hear like some of the other songs to hear what that sounds like. Because I feel like even with something like this, you could listen to it multiple times and find something new every single time. Now, everyone also knows that the production is the most important element at the end of the day for me. And I did quite like the production. I will say I did want more, but it still really worked for me. And I will say, I feel like we've talked a lot about the way that people sing affecting people's scores a lot. And I will say that I do quite like her voice. Listening to the song, I was thinking about how some people might not like the vocal performance, but I was on the same page with it. I was like, this does work for me. It is a 3, which is at the lower end, but considering that I did not know what to expect, I think it's a pretty good start. And it's only going to get better. That's all I'm going to say.
Nice.
Oh, okay. Wait, I'm pleasantly surprised.
Not to spoil it, but 3 is it's not the lowest I go, but I only go lower once. That's all I'm going to say. And the rest of it is above it.
Whoa.
I'm liking my 3.5 prediction. I have to say, starting off, I find it very interesting that you both brought up rock music, because technically this is a singer-songwriter album which falls under folk, which I think is very weird, and kind of how I'm categorizing it for the purposes of like what genres we're doing on here, our own internal use or whatever. A singer-songwriter in like the 90s is such a very like distinct style, and even within that, I feel like Tori Amos is very unique. And I kind of knew what to expect. Yeah, I mean, I had not heard a full album as well, so at the same time, I didn't know what fully to expect. Yeah, to start it off, I guess I'll just apologize right off the bat. This is not bad, but I do not like it. You know how I feel about key changes, and honestly, it's just too long. There's some nice melodies here. I do appreciate the amount of piano on this song and the album as a whole, but I did give this a 1.5.
Oh, 1.5?
That's crazy low.
I mean, I'll spoil like my ending thoughts of this. This is one of those albums that gets the "This is why I don't like 90s music" award. So unfortunately, I just don't like this style at all.
Why do you hate women?
I mean, that's fair. Hey, lyrically, it's very good. This is just not.
It is a specific style and a style that I know you don't particularly care for that much.
Yeah, I'm surprised that you're this surprised because I feel like you know how I feel about this kind of music usually.
I'm not surprised, but I guess I didn't expect it to be quite as low.
Don't worry, I go lower.
I mean, to be fair, there is, as I've said, there is one song on here that I think is just like, why did we do this? And the score is extremely low. So I guess I go lower as well.
Well, anyway, yeah, so sorry, my scores are going to be low, but I feel like you expected that. And I feel like most people, I guess most listeners of the podcast probably expected that as well. So my apologies, and I will continue to apologize. I've written it in here many times.
There has to be some sort of divide, I will say, in scores.
Oh, yeah,
for every
for sure.
episode.
Ooh, I want to say real quick about Crucify, something that I'll say. I mean, I'll talk about it a lot, but if we're talking about her vocal performance, it's definitely one where either you get it or you don't, I think. Something I love is that she does not really seem to care about her voice sounding like nice or pretty. There is so much palpable emotion. She screams so much on this album. Mm-hmm. And especially the backing vocals in the outro of this, the like repeated, "Why do we crucify ourselves?" And it's like this chorus of women shouting, basically, is so good. And I love hearing that throughout the album. You know, she pushes her voice to the limit in a way that is so raw and so unabashed that I think is just awesome. And I love especially when female vocalists aren't afraid to sound ugly as hell when they're singing, because there's plenty of men out there who sound like shit when they're singing.
Yeah.
And I think we need more women in male fields.
True. Yeah. I mean, we just covered The Cure last week, and, you know, Robert Smith doesn't always sound amazing in every song, but there's a lot of emotion there, you know, and you either like it or you don't. And I'm pretty sure you can guess what I felt about that.
You tend to be less forgiving of poor vocals.
That is true, yes, because I am a bad singer. So it's like, I don't know. I spent a lot of time like fixing my own vocals, you know. That could be part of it. It also could be my own taste. But anyway, we have a second track to talk about, and that is Girl. This is the one I predicted to be David's favorite, and I don't know why. When I listened to this album the first time, I was just like, you know what? That feels like a song that David would like, and I never gave it any other thought. And then I tried to give it more thought, and then I just couldn't figure out what his favorite song would be. So unfortunately, you're sticking with Girl.
But wait, did Grace give her score for Crucify?
Oh, I didn't. It is a 5.
Nice. Anyway, Girl, produced by Tori Amos and Eric Rossi. And thank you for saying his name, because that's how I was going to say it, but you never know if you pronounce the E at the end or not.
To be fair, I didn't look up the pronunciation before this.
Cool,
either.
I didn't either.
We could both be saying it wrong.
That's okay. You did it first, so that's fine.
I'll take the fall for it.
Anyway, go ahead, Grace.
I really like this one as well. This one is, in terms of like lyrics, I think it's very plain what the song is about, what it's saying, the idea of women diminishing themselves to serve others, people pleasing, you know, living for other people and their expectations versus themselves. Something that I find very meaningful about this album is the way that Tori looks back on a lot of formative experiences and years in her childhood and adolescence. And this song is no exception. I love the lyrics like, "Well, I'm not 17, but I've cuts on my knees." It just, you know, there's this idea of memory of like the girl she was and the woman she's becoming, and the relationship between those selves, those facets of her, is explored very thoroughly on this album in a way that I find very interesting and very, very powerful. And this is definitely one of those songs looking back at, she's looking back at her life and saying, I used to be, this people-pleasing girl trying to, live for everyone else, and I haven't changed. Like I'm looking back at my youth, and I can maybe forgive it. In my youth, I didn't know better, but I'm older now, and I'm still falling back into these same traps, these same patriarchal traps. To me, that is what this song is all about. I really like the production on this, especially in the bridge when it turns into like a proper rock song and we actually do get like the guitars. That I think is really fun. I would like to hear a little bit more of that production on this if I had my way, if I was in the studio. Yeah, so my rating of this one is a 4, which seems kind of maybe on the low end, but I'm going to stick with 4 for now.
That's still a good score.
It's a good score, good song.
Something that struck me with the whole album was how different each song sounds, and yet how it's all in this one very distinct style. And I felt that immediately with Girl. And the style of this works better for me than Crucify. I feel like there's just more going on. I think I've realized with time, I just like a lot of stuff going on with the production.
I agree.
Just as much as you can cram in there, the better. And this is not about the vocal performance specifically, but the mix of voices didn't work for me, to be honest.
Yeah, in the bridge, when we get like the overlapping vocals, yeah.
I don't know, it didn't really work for me, and that's kind of what keeps it at a 3. Otherwise, it would absolutely be a 3.5. But this is definitely, at least to me, one of those albums, and we've had these types of albums before multiple times, where it works best if you listen to it as an album versus individual songs. At least I feel like that. It's almost like a collage, like every song is a component of a collage, which I really, really like. And I think her style lends itself to that very, very well. Even though sometimes the indie effect might creep in there, I think it's still, that does work for me quite a lot. So even though this is a 3, I'm very on board. I'm very intrigued. Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, I said kind of fun to get a synth on here. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm not a fan of this one either. The whole album is a lot more theatrical than I was expecting, which I guess is just a symptom of it being from the 90s. Also, key change. This is a 1.5.
The two of us are consistent, just on 2 different levels.
2 completely different planes, yeah. We get all perspectives here.
I am SMDH. SMDH, shaking my damn head.
When we have a guest episode and I don't like the music, which is most of the time, it seems, it hurts more, because if David really likes something, then it's just kind of like, that's okay. He just discovered it. Like, he's just like, this is cool. He's still like getting into it. But to have somebody who's loved it for years, I know it hurts more. But unfortunately, we're going to continue that trend.
It's okay. I'll forgive you.
Track number 3, Silent All These Years, produced by David Sigurdsson. I'm going to say it differently every time. This was the second single, released November of 1991. It peaked at number 26 in the UK, and similarly to Crucify, only charted on the alternative airplay chart in the US. However, it was re-released in January of 1997 in the US, where it peaked at number 65 on the Hot 100. Grace, take it away.
Actually, I think you guys should go first on this one, because
Oh, true.
This is just like, this song means so much to me. I want to let you guys get your thoughts out first.
All right, I'm going to just be negative right away, and then I'll let David be more positive. This sounds like it's a Renaissance Disney princess theme song to me. This is pretty much the perfect example of why I don't like 90s music and pop ballads. I'm so sorry, but I have to speak by truth. This is not for me at all. This is a 1.5 as well. David, take it away.
I don't remember if you were talking about this album specifically, but hearing that the label didn't like the piano is crazy to me, because I love the piano work in this album.
I agree.
Yes.
For the record.
Honestly, that made me think you might like it, even though I had an inkling that you would generally not like this album.
Yeah.
But I'm like,
agreed.
Piano. Brandon likes piano.
Yeah, and it's very well done.
It is very well done. You can tell that this is, being performed by someone that is very, very skilled, and as it turns out, a child prodigy. But this song has, to me, a great build in it, and I feel like just kind of the same way that Girl stepped up with its production when compared to Crucify, I feel like this is another big step up. This is firmly at a 3.5. this is a song that I would re-listen to. Might mix it in with one of my playlists, although I don't know which one. And with that,
I think this is my second favorite song of all time. It honestly, and I feel like also it jockeys for first place with Transatlanticism, the song by Death Cab for Cutie. I think that is my favorite of all time. But this is a very, very close second, if not like tied. This is just, the emotion is so raw. The lyrics are so, so powerful. To me, this one you just feel immediately. I felt this one immediately. I felt like this was a song about my own life, even though it's primarily about a like unhealthy, like emotionally abusive relationship, which at age 15 I hadn't experienced. But God, just the lyrics. What if I'm a mermaid in these jeans of his with her name still on it? I don't care, but sometimes I hear my voice and it's been here silent all these years. Like, I don't know, like perfect chorus. I don't know what else is to be said. And this also, we get some like Little Mermaid themes and references, which come back later in the album, specifically on Mother. So we get the idea of a mermaid who has lost her voice, but she's saying, it has been here. And, at the time I was feeling very alone. I was very low. It was a very low point in my life. I've just been struggling with a lot of things mentally. And, this is a song that really gave me so much strength. This idea of, it's, my life is hard now. Things are difficult. I feel like I don't belong. I'm a mermaid in jeans. The Antichrist in the kitchen is yelling at me. To me, that immediately evoked my parents.
Your parents are the Antichrist.
My parents, they're never going to listen to this. They don't know anything about my life. I can call them the Antichrist if I want.
Shout out to Greta Thunberg, though. We all know she's the true Antichrist.
That's right. That's right. Anyway, the idea that there's all this pain in your life, but inside you still there is a voice. And even if it's been silent for years, there is something in you that is still alive and that you can still hear and draw strength from. And that was just such a beacon of hope to me and such a powerful message for me to hear at that time. I do also love the line, so you found a girl who thinks really deep thoughts. What's so amazing about really deep thoughts?
That is great, yeah.
I love when she's kind of like funny and petty. We get that a little bit later on, like Tear in Your Hand, especially. We get some lines like that. And yeah, just the vocal stylings, especially in the bridge when she really sings at the tippy top of her register. Will I choke on my tears till there's finally nothing left? Like just almost sung in such a high register that it's almost screeching. I don't know. It just kills me. It just gets me in the gut in a way that few songs ever have or probably ever will. This is, such a beautiful, tear-jerking, perfect song to me. Obviously, this is a 5. This is like one of the most important musical pieces in my life.
So I'm going to assume it's your favorite from the album.
This is my favorite from the album.
Okay, yeah.
Safe to say.
Sounds good.
I think it's safe to say.
Track number 4, Precious Things, produced by Tori Amos and Eric Rossi. Should I get it out of the way right now?
Why don't, for all of these, maybe you should just get it out of the way so we can end on a high note.
Yeah, I only have like one thing to say about each of them. I said this one has got a little more something to it that I find interesting. I gave this one a 2.
Oh.
David, go ahead.
ironically, this is the song where I wrote down the note, Brandon is going to hate this.
Unfortunately.
I mean, when I was listening to this, I was like wondering what you're going to give it, but I did have a feeling that you would not like it that much.
You're starting to learn my taste too, which is pretty good.
Yeah, just
I like
based
this.
off, hey, we're in season 2. If I didn't know your taste by now, then what are we doing? But I absolutely love the opening of the song and the fact that it's more rock forward. Again, like I don't know much about 90s rock, and it's definitely an area that I want to explore more. So I really enjoyed the fact that this, at least it felt to me to be more rock forward. And it is very weird, but I say that in a good way, which I always love things that are weird in a good way. I think that always makes it fun. And honestly, I love the people that are weird in a good way the most. So, hey. This is a 3.5. It's not my favorite though. That's all I'm going to say.
This one rules. This is the rage, like, climax of the album for sure. I love the beginning with the percussion of where it's just like the quick breaths in and out. So cool. I love the piano. I love how ominous it sounds. I think this is like just like an incredibly written piano piece. And I love the way she shrieks in this. Just like wailing, shrieking. The emotion is so palpable. It just like bleeds out of the speakers to me. And this one is very fun at live shows. I've seen her live 3 times. She plays a different set list every time. But this one, the line, so you can make me come, that doesn't make you Jesus. The crowd goes wild for that.
I was waiting for a shout out for that.
Yeah.
Everyone shouts that one. Yeah, everyone screams that one. Yeah, it's a great line. It's a great line. Yeah, I love the anger in this one, but also I just get this feeling of intense loneliness and alienation in this song. For me, this song is about, as a woman, you find yourself pitted against other women and, made to see them as your competitors. But then you also find out that men hate you too. And you're like, what the fuck? Like, so am I just supposed, so you are isolated from your allies and alienated from yourself too. So much of being a woman is existing outside of yourself, objectifying yourself, seeing your life through the eyes of other people, which is a lot of what Girl is about. So this one really, to me, this song just feels like you're somewhere like lost in like the dark woods or a void. And I think of the line from The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky, where it's, you find you have destroyed and betrayed yourself for nothing. And to me, that is what this song is about, the idea that you have destroyed yourself for the approval of men just to learn that doesn't even matter, that will never be enough. And we get some great lyrics in this one. I love those demigods with their 9-inch nails and little fascist panties tucked inside the heart of every nice girl. Ugh, so good. Paints such a vivid picture.
Shout out 9-inch nails.
Shout out 9-inch nails, which Tori allegedly had an affair after this with Trent Reznor of 9-inch nails fame.
Wow.
And was embroiled in a controversial love triangle with him and Courtney Love.
Wow.
And apparently there are songs about Courtney Love. On her third record, Boys for Pele, is all about that like situationship and his like cheating on her / leaving her for Courtney Love. There's a song Professional Widow on that album that is pretty widely considered to be about Courtney Love. That's a little interesting tidbit for you.
Also on the Genius annotation of that line, it mentions that they became good friends and that she featured or had like backing vocals on a few 9-inch nails songs too.
Yeah, and he features on her second album, Under the Pink. He sings backing vocals on one of the songs. So they became really good friends, and then allegedly something more, and then it ended poorly. Neither of them have ever confirmed this has happened. This is a 5 for me. This is one of the standouts on the album. This is maybe my second favorite on the album. Really cathartic to scream this one in the car, in the shower, wherever. It's a banger. And it is theatrical, and I think that's I understand why that may not appeal to a lot of people. I think her music does kind of lean very theatrical. It's, again, that's something you're either on board with it or you're not. And if you're not, then there's not much to be done about it, I suppose. But this one definitely is one of the more theatrical ones, but I think it's all the better for it.
Track number 5, Winter, produced by David Sigerson. The 4th single, it was released March 9th, 1992, and it peaked at number 25 on the UK singles chart. And I am wondering, since she was based in the UK, was she based in the UK at this time?
I don't know if I believe she moved back to the States after like recording this in the UK, but I'm honestly not positive the exact timeline there.
Because it seems like East West did a way better job of marketing her than Atlantic did, because all of these songs charted way better in the UK. And the album also came out in the UK before it came out in the US, which is kind of interesting because she is technically American. So,
Yeah.
anyway, to start off on a negative note, this one was a struggle for me. I was not a fan of her inflection, and it's quite long. She's a good writer, but once again, I did not care for this. I gave this one a 1. David, go ahead.
The vocal performance and melody are weaker for me in this particular song. But again, like the production is really, really interesting. It has a lot of ebbs and flows, I feel like, that I found to be particularly interesting, kind of set it apart from some of the other songs. I will say it is also quite long, and it does feel like it is long, which is ultimately altogether why it is a 3. So I agree that it is weaker compared to the last couple of songs. I will say, not to get ahead of myself, but I do feel like the second half of the album is stronger as a whole.
Really?
Than the first
Interesting.
half. Yeah, at least for me. And I will speak about why I feel like it is like that for me. I don't know, maybe Brandon will also be able to guess why, but we'll get there.
Ballads?
Interesting, yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to think.
Huh. Because, yeah, I'm the opposite. I think that this, like, 5-song run in the beginning is, like, one of the greatest of all time. Like,
It is very consistent. Like, when I say it's stronger for me, it's still, like, pretty similar, but it's just, like, a little inch stronger.
Yeah.
For lack of a better way of finding how to phrase that.
I really love this one. It is long. You guys are right. To me, it never feels long. I see the criticism, and this one definitely is slower. There's not as much going on. The melody is a little more simple. But this one is very poignant to me. This one is, she's talked about this one. It's a conversation between a girl and her father. And she has said about this song, the white horses that are referenced are your dreams and opportunities and roads you thought you might go down and haven't experienced. And all these potential experiences are gone now. The doors are closed. And imagination, the belief that your imagination can take you places, the magical world, it's gone from your world. And there's nothing more painful than that when you can't access your magical world. There was a moment where I thought I was too young to not be able to access that anymore. But I've noticed over the years that a lot of teenagers feel locked out of that world. They don't know how to get back anymore because in trying to become an adult, you feel you have to circumcise the magical world from yours. I don't know why she used the verb circumcise, but I understand what she was meaning. I understand what she means. And
Shout
yeah,
out
that's
circumcision, I guess. Whatever.
This is going to be known as the circumcision episode now.
Our episode about feminism and women is about
Circumcision, yeah.
I mean, yeah. Well,
but this is one of the most straightforward songs on the album where I think it is very straightforwardly a woman speaking to her father, looking back on her childhood, growing up, wondering where all of like the joy and the hope and the opportunities have gone. The part for me that has always hit the hardest is in the bridge when she says, "You say I wanted you to be proud of me. I always wanted that myself." Her delivery of that I always wanted you to be proud of me, and the way she kind of like screams that or shouts that and she stops singing is so gut-wrenching to me. I really love this one. This one is a 5 for me. Even if the production isn't doing as much as some of the others, I think the writing on it is so beautiful that I have to give it a 5.
this was, correct me if I'm wrong, this was one of the initial 2 that you had heard?
Yes, correct. I think this might have been the first. I think I might have listened to this one before Silent all these years.
Track number 6, Happy Phantom, produced by David Sigerson. I wrote down, sure, why not? This one feels very out of place on the album, but I don't hate its inclusion. We also get a piano solo with, I believe, a sitar in the background. So shout out to that. And it is weird, but it gets props from me for that. I gave this one a 1.5, so not really much of an improvement, but it's strange. This is also the one that I picked to be Grace's least favorite on here. I don't know how I feel about that, but the first time I heard it, I was like, this is like totally different. So I don't know. That was my thought. But David, you mentioned that you think the second half of the album is stronger. Does that mean it starts with this song? Do you like this one a lot?
It does not start with this song.
Okay.
I agree that this song does feel out of place. It feels very experimental in a way that reminds me of Beck, kind of, which, as everyone knows, I wasn't the biggest fan of Beck, which might tell you how I feel about this song. It does not like get me there. This is a 2.5. It's my least favorite song, and it's the only time I do dip down past a 3. I think I've come to realize that once I've become used to someone's style, if they start like experimenting, I'm kind of like, I don't know.
Fair enough.
Maybe not for me.
You are going to hate my music.
No, I'm going to love your music. Don't worry.
Yeah, this one is very different from a lot of things on the album. Even though the album does go a lot of different places, this one does feel very like kind of random almost in its tone and in its style. For me, I think of it as this, imagining, hey, if I'm dead, I'm free of all of these societal expectations and of all of these things that have either been holding me down or have been causing me hardship or have, just made my life difficult, especially the idea of, as a woman, so much of life is the amount of hours and money that women spend on just like beauty products and shaving is absolutely unconscionable. And I think we should try all beauty company executives at the International Criminal Court. You can leave that in this podcast.
Oh, I'm going to. Oh, absolutely.
But the idea of, oh wait, if I died, like I could do whatever I wanted. I wouldn't have to live like that anymore. I wouldn't have to be afraid of, male violence. And that is how I read this song and what it means to me. That said, it's a 3 out of 5. I don't think it's a bad song. So I didn't want to give it any lower, but I never come back to this one. If I'm listening to the album all the way through, I don't skip it, but because it's not very long, but it is what it is. Oh, it's like a fun little jaunt. Doesn't really do too much for me as a song by itself. I like it as a moment of levity and of joy on an album that's very heavy a lot of the time.
Track number 7, China, produced by Ian Stanley. This was the third single, released January 20th, 1992, and it peaked at number 51 on the UK singles chart. This song is way too cheesy and feels insincere, and it reminded me of an ABBA ballad. This is a skip for me. This is a 1, and this is easily my least favorite song on here.
You kind of got it right why I think the second half of this album is stronger for me, because it starts with this song, which is obviously a ballad. Everyone knows I like my older ballads because I feel like I don't like modern ballads very well. I will say, I think it's more than just ballads though. I feel like the second half of this album has this quieter style that's not necessarily all ballads, but just like that just really worked for me. So I think that's why ultimately the second half is stronger to me. This song is still a 3.5. It's closer to being one of my favorites, although it's not in my top 2, which I will talk about. I also do like that it goes a little crazy at the end though. So just a very nice, like soft ballad, which, hey, that's my soft spot, I guess.
This is going to be the one instance in the recording of this where I am on the exact same page as Brandon about this song.
Whoa.
Ooh.
Tori, if you ever hear this, I love you so much. I'm your biggest fan. Please don't hate me for saying this. Flop. I'm so sorry. It's a flop for me. I agree. I think the production is sappy. The lyrics are very simple, basic, cheesy. I find it far too slow and long. I have always wondered why she put this on the album. And I've long said that this song sounds like it's from a bad Broadway musical.
I agree.
As someone that likes it tracks.
As I was doing research for this podcast, I saw that, this was the first song to be written for the album all the way back in 1987. So this is like a much earlier work. She also said, "There's been a side of me that's always been drawn to heart-wrenching love songs, and sometimes I find that you don't necessarily get those in the contemporary singer-songwriter world, but also with musical theater. Gershwin classics. I think that China probably came after a big bout of listening to Barbra Streisand, because if anyone can break your heart, she could." And I was like, yeah, that all makes sense. It's all coming together. So I appreciate the themes of distance and, how it can relate to the rest of the album's themes of, alienation, how it can be very painful to feel so alone and a part of yourself, and then to find that the person you've been relying on is also pulling away. I respect that in the way it fits into the album somewhat, but I think it's so different than a lot of the stuff that she's put out since. It's so weak compared to it. And especially when, she released a bonus edition, a deluxe edition of the album with bonus tracks, many of which are so much stronger than this. I don't understand why this is put on there when other songs were passed over, including one of the bonus tracks on Little Earthquakes. She performs at like every show. Like she performs it all the time. It's called Take to the Sky. I don't know when the hell was the last time she performed this one. And it's very divisive in the Tori fandom. A lot of people feel similarly to myself and Brandon, where they're like, what is this? This is such an outlier in her discography. But some people really love it, and they just get it. It really gets to them. The emotion gets to them. They feel very emotional listening to it. So this one, you either you love it or you hate it. There's no in between. And I do hate to say, yes, this is a skip. I did give this one a 1 out of 5.
Whoa, we're in agreement.
We're in agreement.
That is crazy.
That's far lower than I ever imagined.
I know. I have
Wow.
to say, listening through this album the first time, I was like, it's probably Happy Phantom. That would be your least favorite. And then the second time through, I was like, should I change it to China? And then I was like, I'm not going to, because maybe I just don't get it. And this is like the perfect type of song that I just don't understand.
It's okay.
Damn it. I should have changed it. I had that thought too.
Yeah, Happy Phantom, I think, is the second lowest rated. So you're not far off.
Okay. I got the right part of the album, I guess. This is kind of the slump of the album for me, because we have track number 8, Leather, produced by David Sigurdsson. I wrote down the chorus is somewhat okay, and I appreciate the jazz influence. Everything else does not work for me, and this is also a 1.
I honestly don't have much to say about this song, and I know that I just said we're entering like the part of the album where it's that's a little bit stronger for me. This is a 3, which kind of goes against what I was talking about with the second half of the album being stronger, but this is like one of barely any, so it's still working for me. It's still hitting for me, just not really that strong for this particular song.
Yeah, this one is pretty mid to me in terms of like my rating, and especially re-listenability. I don't listen to this one really unless I'm listening to the album like in full, but I don't skip it. I do like that this sounds kind of like an old-timey burlesque number. Like it's kind of like, oh, hello fellas, like yoo-hoo. But and I appreciate its themes as well of, this is a song that's about female sexuality and resigning yourself to being seen as an object / trying to seize some sort of control over that objectification so that you can't feel the dehumanization of it because you're in control of it. And I think that that's a theme that it was relevant in the 70s during the feminist sex wars discourse. It was relevant in the 90s. It's relevant today with kink discourse. I think there's a lot that can be gleaned and felt from this song. But in terms of listenability, this one's like a 3.5 for me. I don't think it's a bad song. I think it's a good song. I think it is what it is, which is a very specific thing. And I think it fits into the album. I think it has a place in the album. But I don't find myself coming back to this one very much.
Track number 9, Mother, produced by David Sigurdsson. Some of the best piano work on the album. That is all I feel like saying. I gave this one a 1.5.
Oh my God.
I think I know what your overall album score is going to be.
Yeah, I wonder.
Brutal.
Something else that struck me was that the songs on the second half of the album also feel more distinct to me when compared to the first half. You would think that would take away from the fact that the best way to experience this is to listen to it as an album. But honestly, that only reinforced to me that is the way to experience this album. I do agree with you. Amazing piano work. It also feels kind of ballady to me, which is why I think it does really work. I will say, the one thing that does kind of take away from it is that it does feel too long. And that's ultimately why this is my second favorite song and why it's close to a 4, but it's still a 3.5.
I love this one. I agree. I think the piano is gorgeous on this. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I probably am, because I don't know. Music theory is not my strong suit, and I don't have like quite an ear for that. But especially the piano in the beginning, those like beginning chords, they sound very similar to the chords at the beginning of Precious Things, but in a different key or like with a slightly different progression. Which I've always found interesting.
That could be. Do you mean the part before it like locks into like the chords where she's just kind of like doing whatever?
Oh yeah, I guess the chords right before she starts singing. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's like over a minute of her just like fucking around on the piano before the song actually starts, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I agree. I feel like those chords specifically, I was like, okay, this is what I like. And then I agree with David. It just went on for a long time.
Yeah, this is a longer one. And I will say this is one that I didn't really ever truly appreciate until like the past few years listening to it. I think I just kind of always wrote it off as like, oh, this is the really long one. As I've listened to it more over these past, few years, and I guess maybe because I've become of like modern marriageable age. I don't know. It hits different. And I think it's so beautiful. I think the lyrics are so beautiful. This is another one where I think the message and themes are very straightforward. The loss of identity that women undergo when they become wives and mothers, especially, in the sense that this song she's speaking to her mother. It's addressed to mother. This idea of we lose the matriarchal lineage, we lose that connection in the way our modern society has been structured for the past many centuries at this point, where it is patriarchal and it is the male who is the head of the household, and it's the male who passes down his name to his male heirs, and women are separated from their history and their lineage of women that have come before them in their family tree. And this song is all about that. And we get another reference to The Little Mermaid. In the original Little Mermaid fairy tale, the Little Mermaid famously dances for the prince because she cannot speak, but she can dance. Even though dancing feels like she is dancing on knives, it's very painful for her with her new feet. And this idea of, a man is going to, at some point, is going to take me away from here, remove me from all I've known, change my name, poison me against the moon, which is this, the moon is a very feminine symbol historically. And, I'm going to be dancing for him, this, much like the Little Mermaid dancing for the prince, kind of reduced to this object at the whims of your husband. And so many of the lyrics I think are really beautiful and poetic here. I love the tuck those ribbons under your helmet, be a good soldier. Our very favorite Fearscape, it's across the sky and across my heart and I cross my legs. Oh my God. Yeah, just really, really powerful stuff about how women are expected to be quiet, attract a good husband, marry him, make babies. Unfortunately, tradwifery is very much back in vogue.
Yeah.
This song remains relevant over 30 years later, unfortunately. But I also think even if we were living in more woke times, it is still much more common for women to change their names to take their husband's last name instead of vice versa, or even just keeping it. Especially as I've entered my late 20s, seeing all of these. I went to an all-girls high school, so a lot of the girls that I knew, I follow on Instagram or Facebook or wherever, and so often these days I'll see someone on Instagram with a name I do not recognize, and I'm like, who the hell is this? And I look and I'm like, oh my God, it's Katie or whoever, and she has changed her last name to her husband's last name, and it's so much. I can't think of a single married person I know that has not taken her husband's last name. That seems like such a small thing, but I don't know. I'm going to have some like radical feminist takes on this podcast, but like, I hate that. It could never be me. I am not changing my last name for a man. I'm sorry. Maybe we can hyphenate, but we both have to hyphenate. I'm not giving up my history. I'm not giving up my identity. even if it's something as symbolic as a name. And with the SAVE Act, which is being debated in the Senate right now, I mean, by the time this podcast comes out, who knows? It's going to specifically disenfranchise married women who have changed their names. So, shit is so bad out here. Anyway, that's my little soapbox. If you are listening and you've changed your last name to be your husband's, I'm sorry. If you feel like I'm attacking you, I'm not. I'm just sad. I just think it's a sad thing that happens, and I wish more people didn't do it.
I gotta say, the original version of the mermaid, like the fairy tale version, is also the best one, in my opinion.
And it's a tragedy.
Yeah, not at all a happy story.
A cautionary tale for giving up your life for a man. Don't do it. He could always choose someone else.
Track number 10, Tear in Your Hand, produced by Tori Amos and Eric Rossi. I was not expecting a 90s rock song on here at all. This is a little Bruce Springsteen effect because it is my favorite song on here.
Oh.
I gave it a 2. I don't know, it could be a 2.5, but it's right in that like middle ground. It would be like a perfect 50 out of 100 for me because it has a lot of things I don't like, but at the same time, I feel like it's a lot catchier and more memorable than some of the other songs on here for me. Actually, I shouldn't say more memorable, more re-listenable, I guess is a better word.
Congratulations, Brandon. We are in agreement. I don't know if it is the fact that it sounds very 90s rock or if it's like the most distinct song or I don't know what, but this is my favorite song. I gotta shout out the production. I think it's absolutely beautiful. For a while, I was kind of going back and forth between a 3.5 and a 4, but eventually I was like, wait, why am I going back and forth? It is just a 4. Yeah, this is my favorite song. I honestly don't have much to say. It just, I really love it. I will add this to, I don't even know what playlist. Again, I have no idea what playlist I'm going to add this to, but this is the song that I'm going to add for sure. It's a 4.
Okay, so I don't know if I said my score for Mother.
Oh yeah, no, you didn't.
My score for Mother is a 5. This one is a 5 for me. For Tear in Your Hand, also a 5 for me.
Hell yeah.
I really love this one. This is also one that I didn't, it's like upon like being a teenager, I really was very attached to like the first 5 songs on the album. And as I've gotten older, I have a much more of an appreciation for the back half, even though I still prefer the front half. But this is definitely the most like traditional classic 90s singer-songwriter rock song, pop influences. This is something where it's like, oh yeah, I can see the influence. I can see how this morphed into, the kind of like rock influenced pop radio that we got then in the early 2000s and the Taylor Swift of it all. The first thing I wrote down though is that there's a Neil Gaiman mention, which is Ruh-roh Raggy.
Yeah.
What are his problems? I don't even remember at this point. Oh,
a lot of sexual assault.
Yeah. Allegations.
Great. Yeah.
He and Tori were friends. And so she shouts out him in this song and she says, me and Neil will be hanging out with the Dream King, which is a reference to the Sandman comics, which she was writing. And it is really unfortunate. As far as I'm aware, she's cut off all contact with him. And it was like very painful for those allegations to come out. I honestly don't know how close of friends they remained outside of the 90s, to be fair. He based a character in the Sandman comics off of her. I think Delirium, is the character's name. Yeah, so it's really unfortunate that he gets a shout out on this otherwise feminist masterpiece of an album. But nothing can be done about that now. But nevertheless, I think this song is great. I think it's really beautiful and there's like a joy and a lightness to it, which I appreciate. And it is pretty much like a straightforward breakup song. But I do also like that it is about how the romantic partner, ostensibly a man she's singing about, cannot see her as a whole person or cannot reconcile the different facets of her, which reflects a lot of the ways that women are oftentimes not seen as three-dimensional, full human beings. I also want to talk about her vocal delivery here because there's patterns of it throughout the album, which I really appreciate, is that she has a very high voice in general. And she can reach these really high, almost like shrieky notes. But she tends to save hitting those notes for the lines which she wants the most emotional impact, or the lines that are like in the chorus or are the climax. We hear it on the, I think there's pieces of me you've never seen. Maybe she's just pieces of me you've never seen. And she goes up on that last word. And we get that emphasis there. And I think a lot of times, I talked about it a little bit on the Lord episode, but when we talk about vocals on albums so much, I think we think a lot or talk a lot about just, how talented this vocalist is. How can they reach these notes? What's their range? Like, or they're belting so well. But I think so much of vocal performance that doesn't get talked about is simply the delivery of the lines, of the lyrics, how it fits with the production. And it's something I think Lorde does incredibly well. I think she knows exactly how to pronounce each line. And it's something that I think Tori does very well, especially on this album. I think she really reserves those moments she saves her high register for the moments when she really wants it to hit.
Track number 11, Me and a Gun. It was recorded by Ian Stanley, who does get production credit on here, despite nothing else happening besides her voice. And this was the lead single of the album, released October 21st, 1991. And to start it off, obviously this is about a subject that's hard to talk about. I wrote down that this is the best song on the album, and I don't think I ever want to listen to it again because it is extremely hard to listen to. I did not rate it because I don't know how to.
That's fair.
It is wild to me that this was the lead single.
Crazy thing to be the lead singer.
Yeah, absolutely insane.
Absolutely crazy. I mean, anyone that knows me knows that I am mainly here for the production. So even though I do think that it's very well done and I like her vocal performance again, I wanted production. I felt like that was missing. It's still a 3. It obviously works. I just don't think that this is for me, really.
Yeah, this song is a skip almost every time I listen to this album, not because I think it is a bad song at all. I gave this one a 5, but because, it's just so hard to listen to and it's so raw and emotional. And it almost just feels like something you shouldn't be listening to.
Yeah, 100%.
I very rarely listen to this one. The choice to do it a cappella, I think, is brilliant. I think any sort of production on it feels wrong.
Yeah.
I think that this is kind of the only way it could have been done. I'll say I saw this one performed live the first time I saw her. It was the first time she had done it live in 11 years. She had paper on the piano that I assumed was just the set list with the keys and everything. And then at one point she took it off the paper and then she just pulled the piano stool up towards the front of the stage and just sat down holding the paper. And she began singing it and it was everyone gasped and then the room, all of the air sucked out of the room, dead silence. This theater of over 1,000 people. You could have heard a pin drop. There was nothing. I have never been in a theater and felt anything even remotely close to that energy. Just every single person holding their breath. And then as the song kind of went on, the silence started getting punctuated by the very obvious sounds of people crying and sniffling. And it was so powerful. It has to be one of, if not the most powerful musical performance I've ever gotten the chance to witness. Just absolutely earth-shaking. I believe the lore around this song is that she kind of composed it in her head while she was driving one night and then went and performed it just a cappella, live at this, wherever she was, busking. I haven't been able to find a source on that, so I don't know if that is true at all. But I do know it was the last song to be written for the album, which to me kind of makes sense. It is the emotional climax of the album. It's the subject that the whole album has kind of been dancing around or alluding to, and then finally engaging with it. And I have a long kind of quote from hers. I'll maybe skip around a bit. And this is where if someone is listening, I'm about to say a quote that's a pretty graphic description of what happened. Tori was 16, and this was a man that came and pulled her into his car after a show. She said in an interview around the release of Little Earthquakes, she said, I'll never talk about it at this level again, but let me ask you, why have I survived that kind of night when other women didn't? How am I alive to tell you this tale when he was ready to slice me up? In the song, I say it was me and a gun, but it wasn't a gun, it was a knife. And the idea was to take me to his friends and cut me up. And he kept telling me that for hours. And if he hadn't needed more drugs, I would have just been one more news report where you see parents grieving for their daughter. And I was singing hymns, as I say in the song, because he told me to. And I sang to stay alive. That's what that night was all about. It was about mutilation more than violence through sex. I do feel as though I was psychologically mutilated that night, and that now I'm trying to put the pieces back together again through love and not hatred, and through my music. My strength has been to open up again to life, and my victory is the fact that despite it all, I kept alive my vulnerability. So obviously she went through something extraordinarily harrowing that really informed her life and her art. And she actually did become the first ever celebrity spokesperson for the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, like as it was starting out, which is like, that is like the largest anti-sexual abuse organization in the country. So that is like a really amazing thing that she's done, and she remains a spokesperson for them. And I also, something that I think is really powerful about this song is that the title of it is Me and a Gun, which if you think about that title and you just hear the words me and a gun, to me, I'm not envisioning someone with a gun held to their head. I'm envisioning someone holding a gun. And so I think it's really powerful that this song in many ways is her. She's using this as her weapon, as her armor, as her way of, gaining that power back. And this is like the gun that she's choosing to wield, is her music and sharing that with the world. And I find that extraordinarily powerful. This is obviously a sad, I gave it a 5. This is obviously a very sad and dark song. So I will end with a moment of levity, which is what I was doing research for this on Wikipedia. On Wikipedia for a song, there's always a section for covers and remixes. And the only thing that's written there is fan remixes of this track exist. However, no official club or house remix exists.
Damn.
Oh my God.
What do you mean? There's no club remixes of the a cappella song about sexual assault?
Jesus Christ. We have one final track for you. Track number 12. The title track, Little Earthquakes, produced by Tori Amos and Eric Rossi. And I said, this is a good closing track that feels like a movie credits type of song. I gave it a 2. And I wanted to say specifically, tracks 10, 11, and 12, I feel like is a perfect way to close this album. This album is not for me. We know that already. And I don't like a lot of these songs, but I feel like this was a moment where I was like, this is really nice. And I appreciate that this is how the album ends.
I agree. I don't have a lot to add. I think it's, again, fits into what I was talking about, where it's a quieter song, a slower song that fits into the second half that just feels much stronger to me. But yeah, I don't have much to add aside from the fact that this is the perfect choice to end the album. I'm happy that it didn't end on Me and a Gun. I feel like that was not the right choice. I'm happy that you kind of get like a little breather, I guess, after that. I agree though that Me and a Gun should be like the second to last. Yeah, this is a 3.5.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect closer. I think it's a great closer. I think it's perfect to have Me and a Gun as the second to last and then end with this. This one, she has said about it that it came out of a lot of miscommunication with friends and family. You don't know exactly how you got there, but suddenly there's lots of finger pointing. There's been a meltdown that's happened in a group of people, and I couldn't cope. She said it was about her friends, actually, rather than her family, and kind of this breakdown of friendship, and where she felt she needed to pull back and relook at her life and who was in her life and the kinds of people she wanted in her life and the kind of person she wanted to be. And she said it was a real turning point in claiming what kind of life I wanted to live. It was a real beginning. So it's interesting that, so we end this album on a song that she thinks is about like a new beginning.
I can totally see that. It sounds a little bit more uplifting too, which is kind of where it's like, we've just lived through all of that and now we're going to continue on.
Yeah. And she ends it with that, or not almost ends it with that chanting mantra, give me life, give me pain, give me myself again. This idea that we've gone through all of this and you know what? Yeah, this is life. I will take it with all of the pain and hardships and trauma, and that is part of myself, and I will keep going. I think it's a great song. It is very long, but to me, it never feels long. I don't know if this or Mother is longer, but both of them are over 6 minutes. I love the production. I love that it moves through various different like suites. You could call it different sections. It's a really great closer, really great way to wrap up the album and kind of sum up a lot of things where, the little earthquakes in question in the song are a little more literally arguments and miscommunications and disagreements amongst friends, family, lovers, but can also be read as, things in your life that have happened that have shaken you to your core, big or small things. Your life is just this series of small earthquakes that maybe no one else can feel, but have maybe shaken you to your core. It might not take much to rip you into pieces, as she says in the song, but we still get that give me myself again. We still get that, ending with picking yourself up and continuing on, soldiering on. So I think it's a wonderful way to end the album. This one's a 5 out of 5 for me.
Now that we've reached the end, Grace, I want you to pick who you want to hear from first. Or should we just keep doing it in the same order?
I think we should probably keep doing it in the same order.
I think that's best.
Sounds good. Would either of you like to guess what I'm going to give this album?
1.5.
Yeah, 1.5. I wrote only one thing. Unfortunately, this receives the This Is Why I Say I Don't Like 90s Music Award. I feel like, it's a solid album. It's very consistent. It is just not something that I enjoy. And, that's okay. That doesn't take away from the fact that a lot of people like it. So yeah, 1.5 for me. David, take it away.
I wonder if you guys can guess what my score is.
3.5?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Shocking.
I don't know, this was such an interesting experience because going into this, again, I did not know what to expect, but I did expect the style to fall into a specific genre that I at least knew of, but it absolutely didn't. It's distinctly its own, which I really like. It's definitely not something that I will return to as much just because I feel like most of the time I'm going to something that just makes me happy. And this is it is much heavier, but I am really happy that you brought this album because I think that there is so much here. And, obviously, like I said, I'm adding Tear in Your Hand to some sort of playlist that I will figure out in the future. It's weird. It falls into the indie score for me. And I feel like it has a lot of characteristics with a lot of indie albums that we've covered, but it is just its own genre in and of itself, which I think is really cool. I like that.
And I did want to ask you before we hear from Grace, do you consider yourself a fan of Tori Amos now?
I do.
Nice.
I don't know if I'd go to a concert. I don't know if I'm that level of a fan, but I do like her music, what I've heard. I feel like there are layers of being a fan, but I would call myself a fan.
Oh my God, David, ally. Ally David,
yeah.
Enemy Brandon.
Brandon, not so much.
Yeah, that's all right. I accept my fate.
It's you need to, what is in Diary of a Wimpy Kid, doesn't Roderick, doesn't he have to wear that hat that says I'm sorry women or something?
That sounds like it could have happened, but I have not seen that since 2010.
Hey, maybe your next guest episode.
Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Yeah. Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Yeah, that one, I was too old for that at the point that came out. So that missed me, but I have seen the meme of the I'm sorry women, and I am a dedicated memer. So, and
I am sorry women.
Thank you.
My apologies.
We forgive you.
Thank you.
But yeah, this one's a 5 out of 5. Even though there's if you averaged it all out, it would be less than 5, especially because China is in there and it pulls it down so much. But for me, the 5s are so high, the songs that are 5s, and just the concept of the album as a whole in general. I think I just have to give it a 5. I think this is my favorite album of all time.
Oh wow!
And
wow.
Yeah, this is I have the cover art on my wall. This is the only musical artist memorabilia I have up in my room, which you can't see.
I have seen it before. I can verify it's there.
You've seen it before. In the background of me right now is a little drawing that Mo made of Gandalf the Grey from Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah, support.
There's other things. Gollum is also there, and he has no clothes. And there's various other things. Shout out Armenia.
Andy Serkis, he's Armenian.
Oh.
He portrayed Gold.
I thought the no clothes thing.
I mean,
something to do with
you never
it,
know.
but- okay, yeah. Anyway,
I was like, is Gollum
never
like
know.
big in Armenia? Is he like culturally, have they claimed him? I guess.
I claim him. Also, what your average like 50-year-old Armenian man looks like, but
whoa. Okay, I didn't say that.
no, I'm kidding. I take that
That's
back.
all
I take that
David.
back.
Anyway,
I'm kidding,
continue.
obviously. I take that back.
But yeah, I think this is a feminist masterpiece. I think this is such a seminal work. I don't think she has ever topped this. And I do think that like as her career has gone on, I've kind of related to her music or found her music kind of less and less compelling kind of as the years have gone on. She's had a very long career. But she is about to put out a new album.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, in the Time of Dragons. And actually, she references Silent All These Years in the most recent single she put out for that. I think the song, and I think a lot of the album is going to be about like the rise of fascism and then also like being an aging woman and like going through menopause and like looking back on your life. And so she says in the song, like,
Shout out women.
Shout out women.
Shout out women.
I knew a girl who wrote Silent All These Years. Like, where is she now? So there's like, so she
That's cool.
kind of ties it back, which is cool. But yeah, so I'm curious to hear the new album, but I don't expect anything to really hit the way this hit. I think it hit me at a time in my life when I needed something like that to hit me. And it knocked me out, and I've never looked back. If she comes to town, I'm always going to be at her show, even though the set list changes every night. She actually does this really cool thing where she will take she'll take requests via fan mail. Her tour manager will stand outside the venue for like usually some sort of specific window, the morning or early afternoon before the show, and you can drop off letters to Tori, and you can put song requests in your letter. You can kind of say whatever you want in your
That
letter.
is so cool.
And she reads all of them, allegedly. I mean, I guess I can't prove that, but she says she reads all of them, and she does indeed like tailor the set list sometimes to requests. So I have to imagine that someone requested specifically Me and a Gun for the show that I saw with her, and she chose to play it or sing it, I should say. But because she hadn't done it in 11 years, so it seems like that was something that maybe she did specifically for a fan or fans. But yeah, I think it's really cool.
This is the classic part of the episode where I feel incredibly bad for just giving a piece of art a 1.5 because, this is why I hate criticism and like I hate doing this in a way. Like, it's more about listening to the music for me than it is rating and talking about it and why we like it and sometimes why we don't like it.
That's the sad part about like having to rate something.
Exactly. Yeah. At the end of the day, like these are all artists. They're all people who have lived such interesting and complex lives and are able to translate that into art. And that's just so amazing. So once again, I'm sorry, everyone, actually, this time. But on that note,
It's okay. We forgive you.
we've talked about women for a while, and now it's time to talk about different women.
More women.
More women.
And a lot about one particular Australian man, because we're talking about Mad Max Fury Road, in case you couldn't tell from the title of this episode. Before we get into everything, I have to ask why you chose to bring Mad Max Fury Road to the episode today.
If I recall correctly, it was on your docket as a movie that you wanted to do. And I was like, oh my God, please have me on for Mad Max Fury Road. Please, 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 please. I played the woman card, and I was like, if you're going to be talking about feminism, you have to have a woman guest on. You have to have me on for Fury Road. And then you said, okay, we don't want to have you twice in one season, so we can do it in the second season. And
That is true. First guest episode of the second season we can do.
Yes.
It was also perfect because we had no idea what to pair with it.
And I wasn't sure either for a while, but then I was like, okay, if it's my episode, I should pair it with something that I really love. And actually, thematically, Little Earthquakes works very well with Mad Max Fury Road, in my opinion. So I decided that was going to be it. So we get to talk about another one of my favorite movies and another one of my favorite and my favorite album.
And let me just say, I've been so excited to talk about this movie like forever. So I'm so happy we're here. We are talking about Mad Max Fury Road, which is a post-apocalyptic action film. And I'm going to throw out IMDb logline at you guys, and I want to know what you guys think. In a post-apocalyptic wasteland, a woman rebels against a tyrannical ruler in search for her homeland with the aid of a group of female prisoners, a psychotic worshiper, and a drifter named Max, end quote.
That's awesome. I didn't realize the log line
That's pretty good.
is
Yeah.
Furiosa forward. I didn't realize that Max is they bury the lead with Max.
And I mean, it fits. It almost kind of feels like they were like, oh, wait, the name in the movie is Max. We should like put him in at the end.
True.
They're just like,
Yeah.
job done. But it does like perfectly describe the movie. He is kind of just like the secondary focus, if that. He's the useful sidekick. I'll put it like that. Let's get the credits out of the way. The movie is, of course, directed by George Miller, produced by Doug Mitchell, George Miller, and PJ Voighton. It's written by George Miller, Brendan McCarthy, and Nico Lathuris, and based on characters by George Miller and Byron Kennedy. The cinematography is by John Seal. It's edited by Margaret Sixel, who, by the way, is George Miller's wife. The music is by Junkie XL, and it was distributed by Warner Brothers. And of course, it is rated R. And it stars Charlize Theron, Tom Hardy, Nicholas Hoult, Hugh Keys-Byrne, Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, Zoe Kravitz, Riley Keough, and many, many, many others. It has a stacked cast. And before we jump into the very, very famous background of this film, I wanted to ask what your relationship was with the first 3 Mad Max films that came before Fury Road, if you have a relationship with them.
No relationship. I had never seen them. I had heard of them. I was familiar with the IP, as some would say. And I remember people being very excited about it, like when we were getting like first look stills and things. And I was kind of like, okay, sure, I guess that's something that people will go see. Then I just saw so much hype about it online after it came out, saying like, this is incredible. This is amazing. It looks amazing. The colors are incredible. This is the like antidote to the Zack Snyder, Christopher Nolan, like dark, gritty, washed out action movies. And it's actually, this movie is like hella woke. This is about feminism. This is about women. This is about women's rights. This is like a female empowerment story. And it like isn't, like it actually is. Like that's not even kind of like that is the heart of this story, like for real. So then I remember telling my sister Carolyn, we were sharing a room. I was like, girl, we got to go see this Mad Max movie tonight. We like lived like really close to our local movie theater. I was like, come on, it's Tuesday. It's $5 Tuesday. Shout out Marcus, the Marcus
Shout out
Majestic
Marcus.
in Brookfield. We're going to go see it. And she didn't want to see. She was like, nah. And then, of course, we came out of the theater and we were all screaming, you know, like, witness me. And we were like in our car, like, we literally lived like 5 minutes away. It was just down a street and we're like gunning it, like stepping on the gas, like, let's fucking go. Like, so revved up. I have never had such like an adrenaline filled experience in a movie theater ever.
Which I think is the reaction to have to this movie. But I think this movie is very interesting because it's not a typical sequel movie where you need to know the franchise before. It's very much separate, which I don't know how separate the other films are from each other because I've only seen half of the very first Mad Max film, which honestly I found kind of boring, not gonna lie.
This is what I hear.
Yeah.
Wait, I wanted to ask as well, Grace, you still have not seen the first 3?
I still have not seen the first 3.
Okay, interesting.
I love this one so much, and I honestly just don't feel the need to see the first 3. I'm sure I will at some point, but yeah, I haven't heard amazing things about them. I know they're iconic, but I know the first one was made on like a shoestring budget, and you can tell.
Yes.
And I watched Furiosa, which is the movie that came out afterwards.
I do think it's important to just briefly like bring you up to speed with Mad Max, the first 3, and George Miller. The first Mad Max was his first film. He made it with a friend of his, Byron Kennedy, who was the producer on it, and it was very much inspired by his time working as a doctor in Australia and all the vehicle accidents and deaths that he would see coming into the emergency room. So they made that film together. It had a tiny budget, very shoestring, but it was a giant success. I think it was the highest grossing or the most profitable film ever made because of its tiny budget for like 20 years or something like that. But it jump-started their careers. Obviously, Mel Gibson was in that film. It kickstarted his whole career, made him a star, and they made two sequels. Mad Max 2 in 1982 and Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome in mid-80s. I forgot to write down the date. But in any case, after the third one, which was not the most well received, Mad Max kind of lay dormant for more than 10 years. Until 1998, when Miller crossed the street in Los Angeles and got an idea for Mad Max Fury Road, which that should tell you how people drive in Los Angeles.
He crossed the street in Los Angeles.
Yes.
That's crazy.
The initial idea was like, a continuous chase, pretty much, for a whole film. But he did not write a screenplay, at least not at first. And I actually want to ask you, Grace, did you know what he did instead of writing a screenplay?
I know that when they were doing the casting for Fury Road, they had the actors come in and read the script, and they were like, it's like a comic book. Like, it was like extremely storyboarded. There was very little like actual words written.
Because he literally just created storyboards. He got together with 5 storyboard artists and wrote a script that was just the panels. It was like 3,500 panels because he knew the whole thing was visual. There was very little dialogue. So he was like, you know what? I'm just going to create that. And they did eventually write some sort of script with Nicola Thuris and Brendan McCarthy. But to your point, it was more of like a comic book because there was no point of writing a screenplay. That screenplay would just be like 20 pages of dialogue and that's it, or 10 pages of dialogue and that's it. Now, he got the idea in 1998 and he set it up at 20th Century Fox in 2000 with Mel Gibson starring. Again, this was Mel Gibson at the top of his career. The controversy hadn't really started, although I think he had already started saying like, those things, which if you're interested, you can look into it. Also, Sigourney Weaver was in talks to play Furiosa, which I think also would have been awesome, although I think Charlize Theron obviously takes the cake. So they built sets, they planned to shoot in Namibia, they put everything together for months, and then can you guess what happened, Brandon? This has happened a lot of times.
Did Mel Gibson say something racist?
No.
Oh,
this has come up
Harvey
multiple
Weinstein?
times.
Oh my God. Wait, no funding?
9/11.
Oh shit.
Yes.
Oh my God, I should have guessed.
Come on.
September 11th,
The world
That's what happens
2001.
every single time.
That's true.
Yeah, they canceled the production. Everything was getting expensive. Everyone was worried. They were also in Africa, which was, obviously close to the Middle East.
Close, in quotes.
Well, to them,
Yeah.
it's close. Don't forget, these are, the executives are Americans after all.
Right, not the smartest.
And they had to suddenly transport a bajillion things like via air that would have been a lot easier before 9/11, and then it was going to be a lot less, and insurance rates went like crazy up. So.
Yes, it became super expensive. I think they even built like most of the vehicles, I believe. They like had them ready and had to dismantle a bunch. Like it was a big mess. So Miller was like, okay, I have to go and make Happy Feet. So I'm going to do that.
Wow, wait, what?
Yes. He made Happy Feet. That was his movie that he made after this, production blew up.
Damn.
And
after 9/11, he was like, I need to make Happy Feet.
Yes, I need to make Happy Feet. Ironically, that's the only Oscar he has is also for Happy Feet.
That's crazy.
Which is wild. Yes. But Mad Max was still on his mind. A big problem came up though. Mel Gibson he just continued to say things and people finally noticed. So obviously he was like, okay, I can't make it with him. He even said that the big reason he couldn't was because Gibson, quote, had all that turbulence in his life, end quote.
It's a very diplomatic way of saying it.
So he decided to go ahead with it and make the film into, and I wonder if you knew about this, Grace, but he was planning to make the film into an R-rated animated film inspired by anime.
Oh, I didn't know that he thought about doing an animated version.
He considered it for a little while. Then he was like, nah, I'm going back. But he did consider it. And honestly, that could have worked. I can see this story working as an anime. Like, I feel like anime has that kind of propulsive action aesthetic that could really work. He goes to Warner Brothers. They set it up. They're going to shoot in Australia. And Charlize Theron joins the cast. But obviously, the big question was who was going to replace Mel Gibson as Max. And I wanted to know if you knew any of the people that were being considered, Grace.
I do because
There's
I looked them up. Because
one.
I looked it up and was reading about it.
Do you want to throw out some of those names?
Yeah, sure. I'll throw out some names. So Loki, a murderer's row of abusive men towards women.
Oh
so it's
God.
amazing.
Yes.
It's great that we didn't get any of them. We got Michael Fassbender, Jeremy Renner, Armie Hammer.
Yep.
Bang, bang, bang. And I guess Armie Hammer was a front runner and like actually read with Tom Hardy. Like they auditioned like at the same time. Eric Bana was also considered. Joel Kinnaman. Heath Ledger was George Miller's number one pick when they were still like kind of just like ideating about it, obviously before Heath Ledger died. And then also they considered Marshall Mathers, a.k.a. Eminem.
That's right.
I can kind of see it. Is that weird?
That is a little weird, I have to say.
I don't
think I
know.
can see it either. I think I read that George Miller was considering Eminem because he worked with Brittany Murphy on Happy Feet, and she had worked with Eminem and was talking about how like amazing he was and how she recommended him. So that was like her recommendation went a long way and was a major reason.
I believe he genuinely considered it seriously for like a long time too, or something like that. Like it took a while for him to get to Tom Hardy, but obviously eventually Tom Hardy did join.
Does Tom Hardy have allegations?
You know what? I looked it up before this and I could not find anything except for the fact that he was a dick on this set, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But it's not illegal to be a dick.
That's true.
Allegedly, Tom Hardy and Armie Hammer were reading together for the part. And this is a direct quote from an article about the casting process. Hardy and Hammer read together as part of their audition, and when Hardy gnashed his teeth and spat at his scene partner, Hammer told Miller that Hardy needed to be Max more than he did. So rare Armie Hammer W?
I wanted to bring something up, which was the vehicles, obviously. Miller wanted to shoot as many of the stunts as he could practically, and that included the vehicles. So they were custom built from scratch, and all of them actually functioned the way you see them functioning in the film. And in total, there were 150 cars made for the film. Something like half of them survived, although I think the ones that got destroyed were supposed to be destroyed. Like they were built to be destroyed. Something else that they actually built was the guitar, the flamethrower guitar, the Doof Warriors guitar. Colin Gibson, who designed everything, he built it as a prop. He was like, okay, I'll just get a guitar, we'll take everything off it, and then make it look like it's real, and then add the flamethrower. And Miller was like, oh, that's awesome. So you can still play it, right? And they were like, what do you mean play it? Like it's a prop. He's like, oh no, I want the guy to actually play the guitar. I want it to be a real guitar that shoots flamethrowers. So they actually built it so you could plug it in, you could play it. They built the Doof Wagon to be a real PA system. So literally the guy playing it, who is a real artist, Iota, he's just like up there playing guitar, shooting flames.
That's pretty sick.
Just chilling. I want that job. Just thrown out there. I can't play guitar, but I still want that job.
Before we continue, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the casting process because I have some more interesting tidbits. For Furiosa, we also had a near miss.
Oh, I didn't know this.
They auditioned Jessica Chastain, Uma Thurman was considered, Gugu Mbatha-Raw, Ruth Negga were all auditioned. And then who was the first pick for a while? But Gal Gadot.
Oh God.
I didn't know she was around at this point.
She was like up and coming.
Yeah, it makes sense. By this point, I think she had been in a Fast and Furious, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, this would have been like 2009, 2010. Because they were casting like Furiosa and like the wives, and they were like, Gal is too old for the wives and she's too young. They decided she was too young for Furiosa, thank God. And then Charlize was then also on the list, and they talked to her, and it turns out she's actually a huge fan of the original movies, and they're really, really big in South Africa, where she's from. So that was like a big part of her getting cast, was her love for the originals. There were a few names that were also interesting that came up for the wives. I guess they auditioned Margot Robbie and Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh, wow.
Before they like blew up. And then also who auditioned for the wives was recording artist Rihanna.
Oh.
Whoa. But someone else that did return was John Seal, who had worked with Miller a lot. He had retired already. He was in his late 60s at this point, and he came out of retirement for this film, which, I mean, it's kind of crazy that your cinematographer and your director are in their late 60s running around the desert, like directing and shooting this film.
And Hugh Keys-Byrne, who plays Immortan Joe, he played a villain in one of the prior Mad Max ones. I can't recall which one
He was
it
in the first film, actually. He played a character called the Toe Cutter. I know, it's like a full circle of him playing the villain in the first Mad Max and the fourth and probably, sadly, final Mad Max film.
Not the final. We got Furiosa.
Yeah, but that's I don't know. To me, that's fully just like a Furiosa film.
Is it titled Furiosa, a Mad Max story, or is it Mad Max Furiosa?
It is. It's Furiosa, like a Mad Max saga.
Okay, interesting. So yeah, I guess it is kind of its own thing.
Yeah, Max is nowhere to be found.
It's like a prequel. It's also a very good film, too.
I have problems with it. I enjoyed it, but I have problems with it, which we can get into or not.
Or maybe we just do a whole episode on that one, too. Anyways, you know, they obviously get everything together for production. They're ready to shoot in Australia in the desert. And then it rains. And the desert that they want to shoot on is suddenly covered in wildflowers. So they have to move back to Namibia, and they finally actually start shooting. Now, I wanted to ask you, Grace, did you know the specific thing that Seal and Miller did when it comes to how they shot the film to make the film an easier experience for the audience, to make it really work on the eyes?
They really emphasized center framing. That was huge. Always keeping the action in the center of the frame. Like what you wanted the audience's eyes to be following, especially in the action sequences, keeping that in the center of the frame. And I know also there's a lot of shots where they use the golden ratio to compose.
But the whole idea behind that, you know, center frame was that if there was rapid cuts, if the object or the person that they want you to look at is always in the center, your eyes don't have to like search around the frame for that point of interest. And that way, like you're just looking at the same spot. So it really makes the whole experience really, really smooth, considering how many cuts there are. And Miller, of course, could do this. Like he could plan for this because he knew almost exactly how he wanted every shot to look and how, like, where he wanted every single cut, which is wild.
He was cooking with gas.
But he also brought someone else on board, who I thought is very important to discuss because it fits into the themes. And I'm sure that you know who this was, Grace, that he brought on board.
Margaret Sixel.
That's right. He brought on his wife, who was also an eminent editor, to cut the film together. She had never cut an action film. So she was like, why do you want me to like cut it? It's going to be different. He was like, yeah, that's the point. He said, quote, because if a guy did it, it would look like every other action movie, end quote, which props to him for going to Margaret Sixel, knowing that she would be able to make the film look the way it does.
He was a huge real one in terms of like making the film like with such an eye for the female experience. Something else that happened like in pre-production, I don't know if you were planning on talking about this, but he brought on, at the time she was going by the name Eve Ensler, the author of the Vagina Monologues. Now she goes by V, to work with the wives, and they did this like whole workshop about victims of sexual violence and like child marriage and things like that. She at the time was working with Congolese survivors of gendered violence, and he gave her the script to, you know, for her to give him feedback. And then she went to Namibia to work with the actresses who played the wives to help them kind of get into that role. And they did exercises like writing letters to their captor, things that created like empathy with survivors of this specific type of violence, which is like huge. That is no one else is doing that. Like no other male director is doing that. Like he realized like, okay, yeah, I'm a dude writing this and it can't just be me. Like we have to bring in the female point of view and experience. And yeah, by having a female editor, bringing on like such a preeminent feminist writer as Eve Ensler these are all like huge things. Like he was walking the walk for sure.
I feel like at every step of the journey for this film, in spite of all the stuff that happened, he kind of kept on making the right decision time after time. And it really paid off, as we will, I'm sure, discuss. Now, I actually wanted to ask Brandon something, and that is, do you want to guess how much of like the things on screen were real? How much of the effects are real on screen?
I'm going to go like 85%.
That's very good. It's estimated that's 80 to 90.
Hey.
Yeah, that was very good. I feel like a lot of people would say a lot lower, but they specifically...
you specifically said as well.
That's
like,
true.
You wanted to do like a lot of practical effects, which I really like. And I feel like, not to spoil it, I think you can tell, because a lot of the time when you have like CGI effects, it's kind of like, okay, cool. It's a little bit soulless almost.
Yeah.
Like this, it feels like there's actually stuff blowing up, you know?
I feel like some people might wonder, oh, does it add that much? But I do feel like it really adds so much to the film. I think if anything, at the, very baseline, it makes it that much more visceral. And I think it does even more than that. There were like 150 stunt performers, I think, including members of Cirque du Soleil. And Guy Norris, who was a stunt coordinator, he, oversaw it all. He was under immense pressure, I'm sure, with, considering what the hell they were doing. And, there were some injuries, but everyone came out of the shoot alive. So kudos to him, and kudos for the overall crew for doing all of this and staying safe while doing it.
The fact that all of the effects are practical, that just adds to, I think, what made this film so special at the time, and what really made it cut through the noise this was peak like Marvel superhero slop, the gray, blue, washed out color palette, dark, things aren't lit. Yeah, all green screen, tons of special effects, very bro-y. There's no female leads. It's all dudes. And this was a movie that said, what if we have a female lead? It's a story of women empowerment that is brightly lit. The colors are extremely saturated and beautiful. We have all these practical effects, very little green screen, like almost nothing. And it looked and felt different than every other action, adventure, fantasy movie, sci-fi movie that was out at the time. And kind of ever since, like low key. Like, I don't think this is on par with Lord of the Rings for me in terms of the effects and the world building and the detail.
Same.
To the the costumes, the sets, the makeup, the production design, the props. Like this is such an immaculately crafted, lived in world that even though you are kind of just thrown into it knowing nothing about what you're seeing, it all feels so real and so visceral, and it's all so memorable because of that.
Yeah, I feel like for me, this is a once-in-a-lifetime film, and what this film is to the action genre is what the Lord of the Rings is to the fantasy genre, in my mind.
Yeah, they really just went out into the desert and blew cars up.
For women.
For women.
That's right. Which, it was also very difficult. And now we got to talk about the fact that certainly didn't help Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy, because they were already having trouble. Obviously, it's a very stressful shoot. You have stuff blowing up, stunts. Also, the fact that, as we've talked about, the fact that the screenplay was kind of just like a comic book made it very difficult for the actors, and particularly Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy, who obviously have the most to do. Like Charlize Theron in specifically, they kind of had no framework to follow. So they were kind of in the dark. And obviously Miller, he spent a lot of time talking to them, but even then they kind of had difficulty seeing his vision kind of until they were able to see the final film. This also wasn't helped by the fact that because Miller knew exactly what he wanted for every shot, they would spend like hours and hours setting up a shot, and then he would shoot for like 2 minutes, and then he'd be like, all right, on to the next thing.
Yeah, and it wasn't like long scenes either. Like every take was just like a tiny snippet. Like
it was like the tiny, like 4-second snippet. Yeah, exactly. Which made it very, very difficult. It got to Theron and Hardy. Their relationship got very rocky. And I actually have a quote from Theron. Quote, "We were like two parents in the front of the car. We were either fighting or we were icing each other. I don't know which one was worse, and they had to deal with it in the back. It was horrible. We should not have done that. We should have been better. I can own up to that," end quote. So their relationship was not good on set. And in many ways, it kind of mirrored like their fight scene that they have when they first kind of meet each other face to face. And there was an incident, which I'm sure you know about, Grace. A little bit of background. Hardy was typically late when it came to shooting. He would show up like an hour or 2 or 3 late, which is the total opposite of Theron. She would always show up at the precise time that she was called. And one day, when Tom Hardy was 3 hours late, it was too much for Theron. She went into a rant. She yelled, quote, "Find the fucking cunt $100,000 for every minute that he's held up the crew," end quote. She yelled this out.
I was not expecting
she was done.
David.
Yes. Sorry for the drop of that word, but I feel like it's important to say the quote.
in this episode, no less.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Hey, it's that type of episode.
It's a direct quote. It's a direct quote.
It is.
But Hardy reacted by aggressively charging at her. And this, of course, made her very uncomfortable, as it would for anyone. So she asked that Denise Denovi, who was a producer, be brought in kind of to like make sure that Hardy wouldn't do anything. But another producer, Doug Mitchell, who was kind of overseeing everything, refused. And it got to the point where Theron felt like Hardy was being let off the hook. And I actually have a quote from her that goes as follows, quote, "It was a man forgiving another man for really bad behavior, and I didn't feel safe," end quote. Which I think is a behavior that not only was very common back in the day, but still exists and, is still an issue in Hollywood and in, honestly, probably like every single industry in the world. Now, it seems like with time, Tom Hardy's behavior did grow better towards Theron following the end of shooting and, the film coming out. They did make up in some capacity. I don't imagine that they're friends, but it seems like they don't hate each other now.
Yeah, I think like Tom has like also like publicly apologized to.
Yes, he has apologized to Theron and to Miller.
And Miller has also talked about his accountability. I found a quote from him, like he also takes accountability for some things with his experience with things on set going wrong in terms of stunts. And he also was he wasn't on set that day. He was shooting a segment of the Twilight Zone movie that was different than the segment than with the helicopter accident, but it still like really rattled him. So he said there was a high degree of difficulty working on the film, Fury Road. And unless you are entirely rigorous about safety, something is inevitably going to go wrong. That was my biggest anxiety. It's something I'd experienced before and it gnaws at you. I guess the actual working process of the actors, I probably should have paid more attention to. So he was so concerned with the technical aspects of everything, the stunts, that he feels like he didn't spend enough time with the actors, both just like fostering a less hostile environment and then also like giving them more to work with because they had so little to work with. So he has also like taken accountability for his part in that as well.
I do think that the film ends up working because the actors that they cast are some of the best actors of their generation. I do think that, if you had other actors that maybe weren't to that level, it might not have worked as well because they wouldn't have been able to, find something to channel.
You can feel the tension between Charlize and Tom.
Yes.
It's incredible. I think it makes their performances better. Yeah. It's unfortunate they had to suffer.
It's sad that they had that fight and that they, had a terrible relationship on set, but I do think that it lends itself to the film. It makes it in a weird way work better.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's really interesting. And to your point, Tom Hardy, I think like right after seeing the premiere, he was like, "Oh, now I get it." And that's kind of when he apologized to Miller. I believe he might have even went up to him and been like, "Oh, now I understand what you were doing out there in the desert. And sorry for acting like a jackass." But you know who else was acting like a jackass? Warner Brothers, because they went over budget and Warner Brothers refused to give them any more money. Problem was, they had not shot any of the Citadel scenes. So literally, the first act and like the last act, the beginning and ending of the whole film. And they forced the production to return to the United States. They had to like dismantle everything and come back. Thankfully, there was a leadership change within Warner Brothers. And when Miller bought what he had, the person in charge, who I tried finding who it was. I didn't find a name.
I've got names. It was Jeff Robinov was the guy who shut them down.
Screw him.
I know. And then Kevin Sujihara replaced him, and he decided, you can go back and you can shoot these scenes that will bookend the movie.
Which thank God he did. Kudos to him. So they were able to shoot everything that they needed, and they filmed that in Australia, all the Citadel scenes. And then they got into cutting. There was a lot.
Yeah, I know that they got a ton of studio notes specifically to make it shorter. I have a quote from Margaret Sixel where she says they really wanted it under 100 minutes, which was just going to be impossible.
Yes, no way.
Yeah, they said it was really, really difficult. They didn't feel like Warner Brothers believed in the vision. But eventually she and George just got so fed up with the notes. They were like, we're going to make the film we want to make, and if no one else likes it, then that's fine. And that's kind of when it all came together.
Yeah, it's crazy that they wanted it under 100 minutes, considering that, Sixel had to go through literally 480 hours of footage.
Jesus.
That's how much there was. And they wanted to cut that into like under 100 minutes, which is wild. I believe she spent like 3 months literally just watching. And something else that they also fiddled with, actually, which I felt was important to bring up. And this is a quote that I have from Seal. Quote, something like 50 or 60% of the film is not running at 24 seconds a frame, which is the traditional frame rate. It'll be running below 24 frames because George, if he couldn't understand what was happening in the shot, he slowed it down until you could. Or if it was too well understood, he'd shorten it or he'd speed it up back towards 24. His manipulation of every shot in that movie is intense, end quote. Which kind of makes it, it gives it that cartoony, like jerky feel at times, which I think complements the film.
I was curious about that because I had a very hard time like understanding what was happening at first, because I was like, I knew like the frame rate was messed up, but I didn't know like why or what was happening. And it was like pretty disorienting at first, but then you start to get used to it after a while. But yeah, that is very weird. So it was under 24
for a lot of the film. Yeah,
that's crazy, because that's even the low end.
For the opening in particular, I don't know if they fiddle with it in particular, but like you are following Max in a state where his mind is very, he's seeing visions. So I'm sure that if anything, they probably ramped it up in order to get that effect because they want you to feel his disorientation.
Oh yeah, opening's fast.
That was where it's most noticeable that the frame rate is messed with.
Ultimately, the film has 2,700 cuts, which equals 22.5 cuts per minute. A lot more cuts than most typical films. It also had 2,000 visual effects shots to fill in the world, particularly to fill in the color palette. They really were able to bring that palette out. And that very much was something that Miller wanted. He wanted those bright oranges, and which I absolutely love. I think that kind of makes the look of the film. Because if it was this kind of very gray world, I don't think it would have worked as well.
No. Or Brandon, what are your thoughts on the color palette?
Good.
Nice.
I like the blue as well. I didn't realize movies looked like shit for many years because I don't watch them. And I also specifically don't watch like action movies and superhero movies because I often find them very boring. And maybe part of that is because they look like shit all the time. So
Yes.
I just kind of
That is a big
assumed that
reason.
this was like part of a broader movement of like, oh, movies look good again. But I didn't realize that everything else looked like shit still. And this was like one of the ones that was the exception.
Sadly, this is an exception, I feel like, at least among action films.
Yeah. Marvel was still doing they were doing kind of brighter colors, but not as saturated or stylistically like cohesive as this, and also with a crap ton of like green screen and like motion smoothing or whatever. So it all just looks terrible anyway.
Zack Snyder and DC were like deep in the throes of make everything as like dark and desaturated as possible. So yeah, that was also going on at the same time. But kind of to your point about Margaret Sixel and George Miller being like, you know what, screw this. We're just going to make our version. And if nobody likes it, fine. If they do, awesome. They were supposed to turn in a PG-13 cut, but they just turned in a rated R cut. And Warner Brothers, they made their own like PG-13 version, but the rated R version tested better. So they just released that, which is like a rare Warner Brothers win when talking about this film.
I have a question about this.
Yes.
Is the difference between PG-13 and R in this case just the amount of like intense action? Because they don't like swear, I don't think, and there's not like sexual themes necessarily.
I would say it's how graphic the violence is.
Okay, yeah, because I don't really understand how that works, especially if it's not like something that like is going to be R. You know,
it's, I don't know. I feel like honestly, the MPAA, the way they rate stuff, some of it is very gray. Like it kind of depends on how they feel about it.
It's very arbitrary, vibes based.
Yes. For instance, there's the fact that like if your movie has a lot of sex in it, it's more likely to get a harsher rating than if it has a lot of violence. Like you're more likely to get a rated R rating if you have even like one sex scene in it.
That's why I was kind of confused why this one was like R, because it's like, I don't know, this doesn't seem like any more violent than other PG-13 movies I've seen. I don't know. Like,
I honestly don't know exactly what goes into like their consideration.
Yeah, this is a very tame R. I would guess maybe like we see the breasts of the milk mothers.
Yeah, that could also be it.
And we do get the Valkyrie nude, but you can't see anything. Like it's shot in such a way that you just see her butt, which is, I think, fine for PG-13. I don't know.
That's gotta be.
Although knowing them, like who knows? Because
literally, who knows?
The MP, they're
the
still
fucking
very
Puritans
much like
on the
prudes.
NBA.
Yeah,
they literally are. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, and some of the violence is quite graphic, especially at the end when Furiosa rips the jaw off of Immortan Joe, which is baller.
That is sick as hell.
So the movie came out May 15th, 2015, and it wasn't a bomb per se, but it also wasn't particularly like a smash hit. It made $380 million, but its budget was somewhere between 154 and 185 million.
So it like broke even.
It broke even. I'm sure also they got, a lot of tax credits when it came to the budget, particularly like if they shot part of it in Australia. So it did break even, but I do feel like a lot of people think that it was his big smash hit,
including
which
me.
It really wasn't. Same. Yeah. I also thought that until I looked it up. But I think a big reason people thought it was a big hit was because it was a big hit with everyone that did see it, because it was absolutely beloved. Like it received universal critical acclaim. Like the moment it came out, everyone was talking about it being one of, if not the best action films ever made. And it received 11 nominations at the 88th Academy Awards for picture, director, cinematography, visual effects, film editing, production design, costume design, makeup and hairstyling, sound mixing, and sound editing.
No screenplay.
No screenplay.
I was curious.
They were like, "Oh, you guys don't have one."
They didn't have much to submit.
They would have had like 2 pages.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
And I think it's important to talk about how much it did win, because it only won 6, which I mean is a lot, but it only won in below the line categories. It won for film editing, production design, costume design, makeup and hairstyling, sound mixing, and sound editing, which I do think it absolutely deserved all those. I don't remember what won Best Picture,
I do.
but honestly, what was it?
It was Spotlight,
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I
Which-
totally forgot that movie exists.
which that is what I am always saying.
Yeah.
because it lost Best Picture, Best Director, Best Cinematography, Best Visual Effects were all things it was nominated for, and it failed. And John Seal has a little story about where someone in England came up to them and said, "I voted for you guys." I think ostensibly for Best Picture. And I'll tell you why. I look at a film and think in 20 years' time, will I remember that film? And in 20 years, I know I'll remember Fury Road. And this is literally what I'm always saying. Who cares about Spotlight? Good movie, good screenplay, no shade to Spotlight, no shade to the team around Spotlight. A few years after, no one cares. Within 2 years, no one cares about Spotlight.
I looked at the list of all the Best Picture winners. I do not even genuinely don't remember even seeing that one on there. Like, that's how little it matters. I don't see anyone watch it either.
The thing is, I do have friends who actually do love it, but it's my friends who are from Boston. So this is like actually a movie about their community. So it hits them in like a very personal way that is not felt by everyone else. Everyone else I know is like, oh yeah, that movie, I guess. Like the impact of Fury Road and what it has done and just how it impacted the culture is 1,000 times more than Spotlight. And I think it was robbed. I think it was robbed Best Director. I think it was robbed Best Picture. I think it was robbed Best Visual Effects. I think it was robbed of everything that it didn't win.
I absolutely agree. I think it should have won every single category that it was nominated in. And I also think that I find it wild that, for instance, Charlize Theron wasn't nominated at all for her performance.
She's great.
She's also amazing in this film. But like I said, this is a once in a generation film. This is like it's wild to me that someone actually made this. And if that's not deserving of Best Picture, then what is? Not to like compare it to Lord of the Rings, but I feel like it's the same exact case. Like I can barely comprehend that someone was able to pull that off, that, you know, this big crew and cast and, you know, everyone was able to pull it off. And, you know, that did win Best Picture, or 2 out of 3 did win Best Picture, which, hey, like I'll accept that one of them didn't win.
I think it was only Return of the King.
Okay. But even then, at least one of them won, and, you know, the other ones won a lot of awards. But the fact that this did not win Best Picture or Best Director is honestly wild to me. When you consider how much George Miller put into it, when you consider that he knew literally what he wanted every single shot to be on set, where he only had to shoot like each shot for like 5 seconds or whatever, he was absolutely robbed.
There's a quote I have here from Steven Soderbergh, who is another director. He said, "I don't understand how they're not still shooting that film, and I don't understand how hundreds of people aren't dead."
I think he also said something along the lines of like, I don't understand how someone does that, and it's my job to understand how to do that.
Once in a lifetime.
Yeah, no, literally, I think it speaks to the fact that this is a once in a lifetime film. I feel like most people agree it is considered probably by most people to be the greatest action film ever made, and it remains popular to this day. It's insanely rewatchable, which I think helps, and I think it's also, you know, to your point, considered to be, you know, a fantastic feminist film too. I did want to quickly say it did, of course, spawn a prequel titled Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. Miller did also direct it, but Charlize Theron did not return, because I believe Miller thought that she was too old.
Yeah, because it's Furiosa's origin story, so they did have to recast. Yeah,
I think that if they had filmed it earlier, they could have had Theron come back, but because they filmed it in like 2020 something, it was too late. And I will say Anya Taylor-Joy, who did play Furiosa, did an excellent job.
My hot take is that she was severely miscast. I don't think she did a bad job, but I think you look at her and then you look at Charlize Theron, and I'm like, how does one get from this like
I can see that
deer-boned waif to like one of the most iconic female action heroes of all time?
I do agree with that. I do love her performance. I think a reason why, though, is because the two films do kind of feel separate in my mind.
They do feel very separate.
You know?
This is true.
because I don't think the bridge is like the best, I will say.
No.
But in spite of like good reviews, the movie did bomb bad.
Yeah.
And that put into question a sequel to Fury Road called The Wasteland that Miller was going to make. So you never know. It seems like he still wants to.
And he's like 80 now. Like
he's 80. He's crazy. I mean, he made this film when he was in his late 60s. He made Furiosa when he was in his 70s. So, hey, maybe he's going to make it once every like 10 years.
He's just built different.
But I did want to throw it to you, Grace, and ask you if you have any questions for us.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of things to like analyze about it in terms of the themes and just the story, et cetera. There's so much symbolism. It's something about this movie is that not only is it this incredibly like high octane, adrenaline fueled action thriller, but it is an extraordinarily rich text in terms of every shot is saying something. There's so much detail. There's so much to analyze. I notice different things every time I watch it. This time that I watched it, something that really struck me was eye contact, the emphasis on characters looking at each other, and how that relates to the theme of witnessing. Witness me, see me for who I am, see me as a person. And that's also a big theme is like, you know, humanity versus inhumanity, people being treated humanely or inhumanely. But I noticed this because towards the beginning, when Furiosa is driving the war rig, she's just gone off the trail, and Nux and Slit are coming up alongside the war rig with Max obviously strapped in at the front. And then Max and Furiosa make this almost awkward like eye contact, like they look at each other and then look away. And my roommate who was watching it with me, he was like, oh my God, even in the apocalypse, you could still make awkward eye contact with the driver next to you. But it's a huge thing, and we see it so much. We get it, but we get it between Max and Furiosa so many times where they're locking eyes. We get it. Nux and Capable have a lot of scenes where directly it's so many times with all of these characters, it's shot, reverse shot, them locking eyes with each other. We get it with the wives and the Immortan looking at each other from the separate cars. You know, we get it from Max and Nux when Max is on the windshield and Nux is driving into the storm. We get it with after, you know, Furiosa, or after Toast has been taken and she's in the car, she's pressed against the window, meeting eyes with Furiosa, who's like doubled over in pain after she's been stabbed.
Which is one of my favorite shots of all time.
So
Her,
good.
like, glare.
Charlize's eye acting is unparalleled.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good in this, and
That's
the
why
makeup.
she's one of the best.
She's one of the best, and the makeup team does a great job with accentuating it, specifically because she has the black face paint, the grease.
Yeah.
So her eyes pop so much when she has that on, especially. So it just adds to the like vivid emotion. But I never realized how many shots in this are actually straight up just shot reverse shots of people like really intensely making eye contact. And I've seen this movie, I don't know, at least half a dozen times. Like it's just every time there's new symbolism, and we can get into like the feminism of it all, but there's just so much to decode. There's so many things in the world that immediately spring up like more questions, and you get to like kind of make your own headcanons of what you think things mean, just like like not even symbolically, but like literally, like why do the war boys look like that? Like why? Like the culture is so rich, and it's a masterclass, I think, in show don't tell storytelling, where you're thrown into this world and everything is foreign, but I never once, when watching it, felt like I didn't understand what was happening. I was just along for the ride, and it felt so lived in and so confident in its vision that I just trusted the movie inherently, that it knew what it was doing and it was going to take me where it needed to go. So I guess with that, I want to ask Brandon, what did you know about this movie going into it? And like, what were your like initial thoughts as the movie was beginning and you were watching the opening?
So 2015, this came out.
On my birthday, May 15th,
Oh.
2015.
Shout out.
Wow, shout out.
Shout out.
And there was a song that was very popular in 2015. It was called See You Again by Charlie Puth.
Oh,
And I
Where is this going?
thought that song was from this movie because I thought this and whatever Fast and Furious movie was the same thing because I saw them advertised all the time. And I was just like, okay, whatever. It's a car chase movie. Who gives a shit?
LMAO.
So shout out to
I can
Charlie
just see
Puth.
that as like, as Charlize Theron sees Tom Hardy like in the crowd. It just starts
At the very end, yeah.
Yeah, just at the very end, and then it leads
It's
into the
been
credits.
a long day.
So that's what I knew about this movie. As it was starting, I was kind of like, okay, I'm very confused. I don't know what's happening. I don't know who these people are. And you never really learn who they are, which I respect. I like that in a way. I don't know how well it works for me all the time, but at the same time, this is an action movie, which I think is just a genre that I don't like as much as others. But on that note, I thought this was a great example of an action movie. So my score will be lower than the last time you were on when I gave the movie a perfect 5. So not to spoil it.
I didn't think this would be a perfect 5.
Me neither,
I
yeah.
figured it would be lower than a 5.
You know, for an action movie, I feel like this is very well done, and it brings to mind another action movie that we watched that I enjoyed a lot.
I think I know which action movie that is that you're referencing.
Yeah, because there was only one that I liked so far.
Yeah, so
Yeah, what did you think of? I mean, what did you think of the story and the characters? Like, how did you feel about whose story we were following, and were you able to follow it?
Yes. And you told me that this is not a movie about Mad Max. It's a movie about Charlize Theron, which I didn't know her name was Furiosa. And I didn't know that that was the same character that was then the spinoff prequel, whatever it is. I was confused as to why we kind of needed to see Max at the beginning. And I feel like after finishing the movie, it's kind of like, oh, that's part of the bait and switch where it's like, this is a Mad Max movie and we're going to see what he's up to.
especially with the voiceover.
Yeah.
Yes. And I feel like it would hit harder if you had seen the first 3 movies and you're like, oh my God, this is the return of Max. We're going to see more of him. So in that regard, I don't know that that worked great for me, knowing nothing about this movie. But I do respect that that's what they did to kind of trick everybody into watching a movie about women, which, you kind of had to do. And honestly, still have to do.
About women escaping sexual violence. Yeah.
Especially in a male-dominated genre like action.
I do love how just action adventure movies have been so male dominated forever. And then finally someone was like, let's make one for the girls. And then that one just ended up being the greatest of all time, potentially. And it's not even close. So shout out George Miller, honorary one of the girls.
Shout out women.
Shout out women.
Shout out women. The fact that it's also so action heavy, I think, is what also makes it stand out. I feel like for some people, for some reason, when they're like, oh, let's like have a female protagonist, something like that, they make it like less action heavy or something like that, which is stupid. Like it should be the same. But like kudos to them for going even harder than the previous films. Like if you compare this to the first film is kind of like, okay, like I'm just bored. This one, it like keeps you, at least it kept me on the edge of my seat for the whole film pretty much. And that's both times I watched it, not just the first time.
We've watched a few action movies on here. Most of them have been older. In fact, I think all of them were from the 20th century.
Yes.
I don't know if this is what is just like a 21st century action movie, but I feel like there's just like majority action in here, like way more than I was expecting and way more than I've seen in any other movie, where it's like, holy shit, like it's just nonstop at some points. Like that, the fight scene, the initial fight scene between Max and Furiosa, I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. We get a fight scene. And then it just kept going on forever. And I was like, holy shit, this is like crazy how little talking there is in this.
I think this film takes its action a step further than most films. I think even nowadays, you like the action films, they are closer to the older films in the sense that there is still a lot of talking. It's not all action. I think this film really is just the outlier in that it's like 95% action. Even when you compare it to something like Furiosa, I can't say that right. Furiosa has so much more dialogue in it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, this film is absolutely an outlier in my mind, and I think that that's really the reason why it works so incredibly well. Even though I think that that is like a very hard line to walk of not going too far.
Yeah, since Brandon, you brought up the bait and switch of the Max and Furiosa of it all. It's such an iconic, I think, subversion of the male action hero, where Max has his arc is straight up only about supporting the women. He does nothing except for help them. Like, he has no other agenda. There's literally nothing else going on in his storyline.
Yeah, literally his purpose, where he's like, he wants to get away. He's just like, yeah, I'm just going to go out on the road and just like do whatever. It's like, okay, what? Like, you have nothing else. You serve no other purpose than to like move the story along, which I respect in a way, you know?
They don't try to turn this into a film with two protagonists. This is fully just Furiosa's story, and Max is a supporting character who, like, they're like, okay, he's a supporting character. He doesn't need, we're not going to focus on him. We're not going to give him like a big character arc or anything like that. This is fully just Furiosa's film.
I did want to ask real quick about the bait and switch, Grace. I think you'll know this. Was Tom Hardy billed first?
I don't know about the poster, but I know when you watch it, Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron are billed together. I think Tom Hardy is first, but he's lower, and Charlize Theron is second, but she's higher. I am pretty sure that's what it is.
And I assume also with the trailer, it was a lot more focused on Max than Furiosa, but I don't know for sure. I did not watch the trailer.
I feel like it was, from what I'm remembering.
I feel like that also could be part of the reason why, like, I'm confusing it with Fast and Furious, because if there was a woman in this movie, in the trailer of it, I feel like I would have been like, oh, that's the woman movie and not the angry man movie.
I mean, they definitely reference like what the story is about. I just don't remember what is like more forward, if it's Max or Furiosa. I will say on the poster, Tom Hardy's name is on the left, so like theoretically first, but Furiosa really dominates the poster.
Interesting.
You see Max from the side, and Furiosa is kind of sitting a little like, she's like covering him a little bit, and she's staring out of the poster. So she really is the focus of the poster, which I think again kind of speaks to like, they're kind of like bait and switching you with the poster itself, which I really like. One
of the best parts of this movie is, firstly, the culmination of Max's arc is this beautiful full circle moment where in the beginning he is being used as a blood bag. He's been dehumanized and his blood is like literally being forcibly pumped out of him against his will. Whereas it all culminates with him willingly giving his blood to Furiosa. And that is the completion of his arc, is him literally giving his life force to a woman freely as an act of, you know, love or just general human connection. And that is, it's so beautiful. It's so powerful. And it's another great example of this idea of, yeah, he's really just here to support the women. And then there's the other great part of the movie where Max, it's one of the night scenes when they're stuck in the mud and the bullet farmer is coming and he's shooting at them. Max has the sniper rifle and he takes 2 shots. He misses. Furiosa comes up behind him and Max just, not only does he give her the gun, he lets her use him as a stand for the gun and just quite literally makes himself into a prop and a tool for her. And it's just like, this is Mad Max. This is like the most macho, like action hero of all time. Like one of, like, just like this really famous. And he is kneeling before a woman, letting her take the kill shot. Like, it just does not get any more symbolic than that.
You wouldn't see Mel Gibson doing that.
Absolutely not.
Just saying.
And Tom Hardy even said, he wrote, I have a quote. He said, it was time to pass Mel's shoes onto Furiosa. So he doesn't even see the franchise. He doesn't see himself as the continuation of Mel Gibson as the hero of the franchise. He sees it as Furiosa, which it absolutely is. And I will say more about Furiosa. She's not sexy. I mean, like she is. Like she's so sexy. Like she's crazy hot. But like she is not presented and packaged in a way that is for, you know, the term the male gaze gets like so overused as to become meaningless these days, I think. But, you know, she has a shaved head. She is dressed fully just androgynously. There's just nothing about her character that is meant just to be like titillating or like, ooh, easy on the eyes. Like this is a dirty, grungy woman who works with her hands, who's driving a huge ass truck, grease all over her, head shaved. And she's got this big hulking mechanical arm. That was actually Charlize Theron's idea to shave her head. Furiosa originally was supposed to have long hair, and Charlize was like, I did
not know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
she was like, I think Furiosa in this world would, you know, she would look a lot more androgynous. She wouldn't be so feminine. But crucially, a huge part of her costume that is frequently like goes unnoticed is the same white linen that the wives wear. She is also wearing underneath her top, which led to like many people theorizing that Furiosa had been a wife at some point to Immortan Joe. And then for whatever reason, because she couldn't bear children or what have you, she was cast out and she became a driver instead. And the reason she has gone to rescue the wives is because they were her at one point. That was a pure fan theory conjecture. Furiosa then the movie as a prequel then kind of changed that and made that like not canon, but they're also very different stories. I don't necessarily have a problem with that at all, but that is like a really interesting part of Furiosa's costume that I don't know if I've ever seen or heard anyone from the production like talk about whether or not that was intentional. To get into the wives too, I also think it's really amazing how the wives are, I mean, these are the beautiful, quote unquote, prize breeders. These are literally models and like very gorgeous young stars. And they are also, in my opinion, never once sexualized, never once like filmed for the male gaze, even when they're literally like drenched in water, like doing like a wet t-shirt like thing.
That's true.
Even in that scene, they are either in like full wide or they're like shoulders up, except for when we're getting close-ups of Angharad pregnant belly, which is important to note, and Cheeto's chastity belt getting cut off of her. Like those are the only times where the camera ever really lingers on their bodies, and it's to show their subjugation. This was also very big at the time in the discourse. Game of Thrones was on, and there was a lot of sexual assault being depicted in Game of Thrones. And another reason this movie felt like a huge breath of fresh air was that this was like an R-rated action movie specifically about sexual assault victims escaping their abuser. And sexual assault is not ever shown on screen or even discussed really explicitly. So that was like a huge thing in the discourse at the time. And another thing that really sets this movie apart where, you know, we can identify with and empathize with sexual assault survivors without having to like display that trauma.
There's this trend in movies and in video games where you will have female characters in environments where their costumes don't match the environment at all, just so that they can appear quote unquote sexy, you know, just so they can appeal to the, you know, male gaze. For instance, like, you know, you have Laura Croft, right? Wearing like the shortest shorts ever and the crop top. And she's running around like mines and stuff like that, you know? That is a trend that is so like ingrained, you know, in movies and video games, and particularly in the action genre when it comes to films. So I think it's especially like noteworthy that they did not go that route, that they were like, okay, what would these characters actually wear? So I think it's like it even goes further than just the way they were shot. It's also the way that they were dressed and the way that they act. You know, you can tell that so much thought was put into like how to portray them as what they are, which is just people.
No, yeah, it's really like incredible the way that this is one of those rare movies where I'm like, I cannot believe a man made this. I cannot believe a man like came up with this. because it feels so authentic. It feels so like this is not performative girl boss feminism. These women are not existing in the slightest for like men to, goon over. And then we also have, I can't believe we even also mentioned, we've talked about Furiosa and the wives, the biker grandmas,
Yeah.
the Ruvellini. That's sick as hell. Like, it's not even like, oh, this isn't like an Amazonian tribe of like, baddies. It's like, these are grandmas. These are women in their 40s, 50s, 60s, like leathered, wrinkled, riding on their bikes. Like, and they're the coolest ever. Like, it's awesome. It's so great. And then we get these really beautiful scenes of the older women passing on their knowledge and their traditions, the keeper of the seeds, like quite literally giving, new life, the seeds to the Dag, who is pregnant with the Immortan's child and feels as though, there is no hope for that child because of who their father might be. And, she's like, it's, he's going to be Warlord Jr., it's going to be ugly. And the keeper of the seeds says, well, it could be a girl. Like, there is hope. It doesn't have to be, I mean, I don't want to say like having male children is bad and having female children is good.
It's the end of the world.
It's so powerful. It's so incredible that this is such a like women-centric movie. And we get all generations of women helping each other out. And we also then get the other main male character, Nux, also has the culmination of his arc being literally sacrificing himself and laying down his life to protect the women. Like, all of the main male characters, their whole arcs are about assisting these women and freeing these women. And something that I've always loved about Nux and the fact that he's called Nux is that Nux has like multiple meanings across like various like languages, but it can mean thing of no value, which very much makes sense given as the war boys are seen as, just quote unquote battle fodder. They're not for anything but just to die for the Immortan Joe. But it can also mean nut or seed. So there's this symbolism, this idea that Nux represents also hope for the next generation, a seed that can be planted, that can grow, that, this next generation can do better than the generation that came before. As I was watching this too, I was like, oh my God, all this shit with the war boys, like it's giving clavicular, like it's giving the manosphere, it's giving looks maxing. Like, it's so relevant to today, unfortunately, because I really see the parallels between, young men in this like almost death cult of like hypermasculinity harming themselves, like you see their scarification on their lips and on their bodies, and like basically like prostrating themselves before this figurehead that doesn't give a fuck about them and whether or not they live or die. And to the point where they're willing to die for him and, completely not question any of his ideology. Nux represents the ability of someone to turn away from that, to realize that their entire worldview has been built on sand, and to, decide to do something about it and be a #ally. Brandon, how do you feel about the gender politics of it all and, Mad Max Fury Road as a piece of feminist media?
I mean, I don't even know what I can add at this point. I feel like you guys have kind of covered everything. Yes, I agree. It works.
I
think it holds up.
I guess I just want to know more of your thoughts. Like, I've talked so much about the movie, and me and David have talked so much about the movie, and I want to know, like, because you don't really watch action movies. I genuinely couldn't really, I figured you would enjoy this, but I really, like, am not sure of what rating you'll give it. So I really want to hear your thoughts.
I do want to ask a question to you, Brandon. And I have an inkling of what might not have worked for you as much. And that's why I'm asking this question. How well does the story work for you?
I mean, that is kind of the big thing, and that's the action thing. I feel like action movies and having these large, sprawling stories that don't get into telling like a shitload of backstory is hard to do. And that's what I liked about this one is it didn't tell you a lot of backstory. It just kind of gets you into the world and you just figure it out along the way. So that I liked. But I mean, ultimately, this is not going to be a 5-star movie for me because there is so little. I don't even want to say talking, but that is kind of like the way that I'm thinking about it. You know, it is like we don't hear a lot of stuff going on. We see it. And I like seeing a lot of stuff, but I also like hearing what's going on in these characters' heads more than like, I don't know, watching cars blow up. Well, that is cool and I enjoyed it. I think that ultimately I would have liked, 5 to 10 more minutes of them kind of discussing things just in general.
We are not things.
But like it worked for me and I enjoyed it and I thought it was very well done. And I do want to bring up something that miraculously neither of you have talked about, which is the sound in this movie, because that is a huge part of why I feel it's so good. And I don't know that that is really something that is a big deal in other action movies, because there's a lot of restraint shown with the sound here, which is crazy because it's so loud and there's so much stuff going on all the time. But I watched this movie in surround sound because my dad is really into having like very nice sound with his movies. And this was a movie that was recommended to him to watch to like test out the speakers and to see if it was good. And he mentioned that to me before we watched it. So I was like, I also had that in my mind of like, okay, there's going to be some sort of like sound that's very important. And I will say there is this like piece of metal. It's like some art thing that's on the wall in the room. When the sub bass is really going crazy, that thing will vibrate against the wall. And that only happened when things would blow up in this movie, which I thought was really cool because a lot of the time when you're watching a modern movie like Dune, that shit was going off all the time. And I loved the sound design in Dune. I thought it was very well done. But this is kind of like a next level because it's not assaulting your ears with everything that's going on. It's showing restraint. And that just the sounds of the cars in general, I thought were very well done. And the mixing on it is incredible too. Now, the mixing on the talking, not very well done. And it's very hard to hear a lot of the things that they're saying sometimes, which also kind of adds to this thing of like wanting more talking, because some of it you just miss because it's very quiet and like very far back in the mix.
Yeah. And a lot of it is very obviously ADR'd as well.
Oh my God. Yeah. Jesus Christ. Like I didn't really understand how much you can hear ADR until we were watching some of these movies. And this is one where I was like, whoa, like they are facing away from you and they are obviously like not even an inch away from the mic. Like it's kind of crazy. So I think ultimately, like, that was nice to have the ADR because you could understand those lines way more than you could understand some of the ones that were very obviously not.
I do have a couple more things to add about this movie. I'm so sorry. I could talk about this movie forever. But there's like another great example of the bait and switch is that we get that side quest of Max where he goes off and he's like, okay, I'm going to go take out these guys that are shooting at you. And we don't see it. We stay with Furiosa and the wives, and Max has his hero moment entirely off screen. And then he comes back and he's covered in blood and he washes the blood off with the mother's milk. Like some might call the symbolism heavy-handed at that point. Like it's just like so, but it's like it's about women. Like shout out women.
Shout out women.
Shout out women.
I will also say, not only does that work to like subvert the trope, I also think it just makes Max cooler at the same time.
Yeah, because you get to imagine.
Maybe if we focus more on the female characters, that would also be beneficial to the male characters too.
Maybe if the men shut up more.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, when is the first time we hear Max say something to Furiosa? It's got to be like 15 minutes after their initial meeting because he's just grunting like
Probably
the whole time.
He says like one-word phrases to her and the wives when he first encounters them.
That's true, yeah.
And then after she chases down the war rig, I think, then he talks with her a little more. And I love that fight scene between Max and Furiosa. Like, it's so good. And it's also like, I don't know. It's like romantic to me almost. The way they're so evenly matched.
Yeah.
And the way they are able to like it really just seems like it's a fight that could go on almost forever. And just because of how evenly matched they are and attuned they are to each other.
I think a large part of that is also the cinematography, because it just makes the scene so pleasing. It literally is a dance between them, and then eventually Nux, who joins.
Yeah.
And
the wives who are part of it too.
Yeah, the wives also. It literally feels like this dance that I personally could like watch for like 20 minutes. I wouldn't mind a 20-minute fight between all of them.
Oh yeah.
Maybe not in the movie itself, but like just in a separate little thing, like as a short film or something, because it's so well choreographed.
Yeah, it's the fight choreography is incredible, and I love how much agency the wives are given. I love how important they are to the plot. I love that they get their roles in the action. I love that they have like personalities, even though they all, you know, they share all their screen time and they don't have a ton of dialogue each, because there's 5/4 of them. Their costume design and their dialogue, their makeup, their acting, they are very distinct from each other, and they all have like their parts to play and their own like hero moments throughout. That is like something that's very refreshing too, because they could just be like MacGuffins, and in many ways they are, but they absolutely have their own personhood and agency and drive the plot and do things that drive the plot. And we get the amazing callback. I love the Cheeto arc where she initially is willing to go back to Immortan Joe because at least that's like the comfort that she knows, where like she's not at risk of getting hurt by anything other than him. And then we get at the end, she does the bait and switch where she begs a Rictus to take her back onto the Giggle Horse, but it's, you know, it's a trick, it's a ruse to help Furiosa. And it's like, yes, like we've overcome our like Stockholm syndrome with our abuser. There's just so much going on. It's so good. I love also like the wives have politics. They have like political opinions. They talk about how like they don't believe in unnecessary killing. And Herod gets asked to load the clip and she says, I can't. And it's unclear whether or not she like physically doesn't know how to, or she feels morally like she can't. It's so, and they're also very forgiving of the war boys. They really are very clear-eyed about what's happening and the power structure, and are able to understand that, you know, we're all slaves to this system. It's so relevant. It was so relevant in 2015. It's so relevant now. Especially now.
Yeah, maybe more now.
Literally, honestly, more now. Obama was still in office in 2015.
Oh, my God.
That was literally the last time there was any sort of hope. And then I guess also another amazing thing, the themes of like humanity and inhumanity, which I mentioned but didn't really expound upon. The whole like we are not things, and that being a refrain of the wives, and this idea that not only are just women people, but like people cannot be treated like property, like objects, you know, in the words of the history woman, who is like the girl's keeper, you know, sooner or later someone pushes back. The way that Max is dehumanized as the blood bag, you know, he's muzzled, he's tattooed with like his stats. This body is literally being used for someone else. And then he's not willing to work with Furiosa. He's willing to go back to Immortan Joe. He's willing to turn the wives in. And then Furiosa, what finally gets him to change his mind is Furiosa appealing to his humanity and saying, I can take that muzzle off of you. You've been treated like an animal. And I see that that is not what you are. And I can free you from this. And then he immediately opens the door. And it just goes to show that is such a huge theme of it too. Again, the wives like being able to understand the humanity of the war boys, even if the war boys are actively trying to kidnap them and force them back into captivity, they still see war boys like Nux for who they are. Like Capable is able to see Nux as like, oh, this is just a sick boy who's been brainwashed and is close to death and sees this as his only way out. Can I show him something different? And then he saves all of them. The idea of witness me, see my humanity, see that I am not a thing. this is just like movie of all time for me. Like, you know, maybe a lot of it is on the nose, maybe a lot of it's heavy-handed, but there's so much of it that it just, I don't know. There's no other action movie I think that even comes close to this.
I completely agree. I'm gonna come out and say it. I think this is the best action movie ever made.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
It's the best one I've ever seen for sure.
I mean, it's going to be kind of hard to beat it, honestly. I'm like, what else could beat it?
If I would have seen this before Dune, I think I would have liked it better because Dune has just kind of soured me on the desert as a location for sci-fi and action and things.
This can reinvent it for you.
It can, yeah. And I feel like
back.
when I watch this again in the future, like it might. And I would be interested because obviously the movie that I've been dancing around and not saying, the other action movie that I liked was Die Hard. And I feel like I would like to watch these back to back and compare.
Yeah, that would be a fun experience.
Because Die Hard is an action movie, but also there's not nearly as much action as there is in this. Like, this is a straight up action movie start to finish.
It was funny that you brought up Dune because I think my most recent watch of Mad Max Fury Road, my review on Letterboxd was Dune wishes its pussy popped half as hard. And I think
I did see this, yes.
And I think and I stand by that.
Yeah, Dune gets too heavy-handed in what it's trying to like tell you as well, where this is like, that's one end of the spectrum. This is the complete opposite end of the spectrum where it tells you essentially nothing and you just figure it out as it goes, which, you know, maybe I like to be told a little bit. So I don't know how much this worked for me on that level, but I did appreciate that it was just, the movie overall was just so confident in what it was that it was like, you'll get it. Like, who cares? You know, you'll figure it out.
Did you have a favorite scene or a favorite character?
I feel like it's hard to identify scenes in this movie. For me, it's easier to identify places.
Fair. Well, was there a favorite spot in the movie that you liked where they were?
I mean, I guess I would say I liked the hopeless part of it where Furiosa discovers that the promised land is no longer promised and is dead.
Yeah.
And I found that to be quite cool. And, you know, maybe that would have made me love the movie more if it ended there, because you know how much I love when things end badly for characters in movies. But I feel like that was the moment where I was like, oh, I feel a lot, actually, despite them not really talking and like telling you much. It's just kind of like, oh, we're just going to drive forever. And then they stop driving because they have to. Like, there's nowhere else to drive. So I thought that was kind of interesting, too. And it was well done. So I guess that would be my favorite scene.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great scene. That's a very iconic, that shot, especially of Furiosa dropping to her knees and screaming.
Yeah.
So good. And I think it's, the fact that you brought up, I forgot to talk about it. The fact that you brought up the idea of that, they try to find this paradise. And that something else that's so incredible about this movie is that they're trying to find this paradise, this green place, this thing that will fix everything. And it's not there. Like it has died. And what do? They say, okay, we were fleeing this, we fled our home in search of this better place, this other land. It's not there. We have to go back and take, our broken home, and we have to create something good from it. And it's that quote from Philip Pullman, which is, I think it's, we have to build the kingdom of heaven where we are, because for us, there is no elsewhere. It's this idea that, heaven does not exist. There is nothing that we can go to that is like going to be perfect. He's an atheist. That there's going to be perfect. This is it. This is all we get. We have to do the best we can with it. And, people use that, to talk about like climate change these days, where it's saying, there's no escape plan. There's no Mars to colonize yet. But yeah, like we've got to fix things here because this is all we got. And I think that's a really beautiful sentiment in this movie. Very hope core, this idea of you don't have to abandon your home.
I really wish either of you had watched Project Hail Mary, because I feel like this is kind of that same idea of that movie. And this is just me going off of vibes of what people have told me about it, where it's like, we have to love where we are and we have to save the earth.
The main character's name is Grace.
Yes.
Ryan Gosling.
That's true.
It's called Grace.
Shout out
Grace.
Ryan Gosling as well.
He's good.
And shout out women one time.
Shout out women.
Shout out women.
I don't really care for Ryan Gosling, but that's neither here nor there.
Bad take. I'm sorry.
I know it's a hot take. I think I've tired of him.
Your Canadian father.
Yeah, I love Canadians.
I think we've lost. I think we no longer have a need for him. I think.
Whoa. Okay. That's Ryan Reynolds, I believe you're confusing him with.
That I
Another
agree with.
Canadian.
That's true. No, Ryan Reynolds, definitely. Ryan Gosling, I'm just kind of like, do we need to put him in all these movies? I don't know. I think he should just go back to doing his like $5 million indie movies. I think that's where he shines.
I kind of want to hear your score before I give a short little.
2. No, I'm kidding. I rated this the same as Die Hard. This is a 4 for me.
Okay, I'm actually very happy with that.
I mean, this might be the top of my action score. Like, I don't know if I can go higher than a 4 for an action movie. If this and Die Hard are like 2 of the best action movies ever, that's great. Like, I'm glad I watched both of them, and I enjoyed myself both times and thought I would like to rewatch that. So that's a win in my book. And also, as David predicted last week, this movie is now my highest rated movie of the season so far. So
Let's go.
Shout out.
Nice. Okay, I was right. That's right.
I mean, I'm going to guess this is a perfect 5 for both of you. I just want to get that out there.
Indeed.
Yeah, I mean, it is a perfect 5. I do think that this is the best action film ever made. I love Die Hard. It's also a 5, but this like takes the cake for me. It's obviously also a fantastic, feminist film, in my opinion. The other things we obviously talked about, but I didn't want to answer the question of what's your favorite scene. What always sticks in my mind is the storm sequence. I think that's one of the most jaw-dropping sequences put to film. And I think that it's a mix of everything coming together, both the special effects, the storytelling, the CGI, and the music. And I realize we haven't actually talked about the music, and
That's true.
The score is
I
so good.
did want to
Score is
say
really good.
this is one of the best scores ever written, in my opinion, because it takes what is already like amazing and elevates it to the next level. And the score in that particular sequence is not only one that I've returned to, like just listening to it on Spotify, but it literally gives me goosebumps. If there's one scene that I would show someone to try and like make them watch the film if they didn't want to watch it, it would be that sequence for sure. It's honestly, in my opinion, a perfect film. I would not change a single thing about it. And that's rare. And I know I gave a lot of 5s out on this podcast, but
I think 19 first season, but yeah.
yeah, but there'll be less this season. But even within those 5s, there's stuff that I would change, little tweaks, stuff like that. But this is one of the few films where I'm just like, it was meant to be this exact way. And I would not change a single thing about it.
I'm going to put you on the spot real quick. Where does this rank among the best films of all time for you?
It's up there.
Is this probably top 10?
I could see that.
Okay.
It would have been, if we had watched it last season, it would be in my 5 nominees for Best Picture.
That's a high bar.
Ordinary People still would have won, but the only reason that would have won is because it's closer to like my heart.
That leads us to one last person.
Yeah, this is a perfect 5. I agree with everything you said, David. I don't think there's anything I would change about it. This is definitely one of the best movies of this century. Easily the best action movie of this century. I hesitate to say all time just because I don't feel like I have enough knowledge to say this. But of the movies I've seen, definitely the best. I can't think of anything else even also that nothing off the top of my head that I haven't seen comes up where I'm like, oh, that might be a better action movie. Like, I don't know what could top it. And it's definitely one of the best movies, period, of the 21st century, of the last 50 years. Like, yeah, possibly ever. This isn't in my top 4 on Letterboxd, but it sometimes has been. This is in my top 5. If it was a top 5, Mad Max would be there. This was one of the first movies where I watched it and I was like, this is literally everything a movie could be. This is every single department is firing on every cylinder. There is not a second wasted. Everything is so intentional. Everything is so detailed. Everything is so rich. The story is rich. The production design, the acting, the action, the stunts, the set design, the props, the makeup, the costumes, just everything this is like peak cinema. Like, this is peak movie. You don't get more movie than this, I don't think.
Shout out women.
Shout out women.
And with that,
Yeah, is this the end of the episode?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We have recorded for so long that it is now the next day, much like I said the first time, except we started an hour earlier than we did last time.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of work to do,
I know,
a lot
I'm
of
so
editing
sorry.
to do. But before we end this episode, we have to ask Grace, is there anything you would like to promote? Anything you'd like to plug? Where can the people find you if they don't follow you from the first season for some unknown reason?
I know. If for whatever reason you're not a fan, then I guess stay unfollowing me. I don't want you anyway. But I'm teasing. I love making new friends. You can follow me on Letterboxd at Gracie T, Graceless Tallmadge on Instagram, or Graceless_Tallmadge. Request to follow me. I'll probably say yes. And if you liked some of the things I had to say about feminism and women, if you also love women and want to shout out women, you can actually follow the feminist organization that I am a part of. We're called Feminist Generation. You can find us on Instagram at feminist.gen, or you can go to our website, feministgeneration.org. I actually am on the board. I'm the membership director. If you're interested in joining and actually getting out and doing some good in the world and fighting the patriarchy, I'm your girl. Shoot me a DM, or you can email me at grace@feministgeneration.org. I don't know. I think we're really cool. I think women are really cool. I think we do really cool stuff. You should join us.
Follow Grace. Stay up to date. She will obviously be back on the podcast in the future. We actually know what her season 3 episode is going to be. So keep an eye out for that. And if you want to know what that episode is going to be the week before it drops, or maybe what next week's episode is going to be the week before it drops, head on over to that Instagram at Uncultured Pop Culture. It's also in the link tree down below in this episode description, and it's in the link tree, which is on our Instagram bio. So, do with that what you will. David, if the people want to get into contact with us and tell us what they think of this episode, or maybe the show in general, where can they do that?
I mean, you can either tell us directly through comments, or you could literally email at us at upcpod@gmail.com. And if you are like, wait a second, what did they score this film? But don't have time to go back and re-listen to a whole episode for some stupid reason. Or if you want to remember what we scored a whole album, where can they go, Brandon?
Rate Your Music, Letterboxd. All of this is linked in our link tree, which I already told you where to get it, so you'll find it. I have no worries about any of that.
I'd like to have a parting message of I love women, free the nipple, grow out your pit hair, dump your bad boyfriend, free Palestine, kill the patriarchy, and shout out women again.
Shout out women.
Shout out women.
And with that,
And with that,
We will see you next week.
bye.
bye.